Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump saying his phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin today was productive. What do we know about the upcoming meeting of the two leaders? The federal government shutdown is now in its 16th day. The Senate failed for the 10th time to pass a short-term funding bill. We have the latest from Capitol Hill. A federal judge has ordered immigration officers in the Chicago area to wear body cameras. The Department of Homeland Security says demonstrators are impeding their enforcement efforts. What is the mood and atmosphere like in Israel since the start of the peace deal brokered by Trump and his team? We get an underground view. Airports across North America are dealing with an apparent cyber attack. Pro-Palestinian messages praising the terror group Hamas were broadcast at airports. Britain publishes evidence tied to a now collapsed Chinese spying case. The documents detail malign Chinese activity, but did not clearly state that China poses a threat to UK national security.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. President Trump will be meeting next week with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Budapest, Hungary. Trump made the announcement just after his phone call with Putin today. In a post on Truth Social, the president said he had a very productive phone call with the Russian leader. They agreed to send their top-level advisors, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, to also meet next week for peace negotiations. That meeting location is yet to be determined. Here's what the White House said about the phone call.
It was a very good and productive call. It lasted more than 2 hours. There were various issues that were discussed. President Putin congratulated President Trump for solving the conflict in Israel and Gaza and bringing peace back to the Middle East. He also thanked the First Lady for her efforts to bring back children and save children in this brutal conflict. And the president feels like great progress was made on this call. They also agreed to have a high-level senior staff meeting convened as early as next week, which will then be followed by a meeting very likely between President Trump and President Putin as well. They talked about Budapest as being a location for that.
Tomorrow, Trump will be meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House. Trump said he will tell Zelensky about his conversation with Putin. Ukraine has been seeking U.S. Tomahawk long-range missiles lately, and that's likely to be a topic of discussion tomorrow. The White House said Trump still believes it's possible to have Putin and Zelensky meet in person. Trump suggested that Russia could trade with the U.S. once the war is over and believes that recent success in the Middle East will help in negotiations to end the Russia-Ukraine war. Meanwhile, President Trump, in another post on Truth Social, wrote, quote, "If Hamas continues to kill people in Gaza, which was not the deal, we will have no choice but to go in and kill them." We now turn to Capitol Hill, where the government shutdown enters the 16th day. Amid the gridlock, House Speaker Mike Johnson this morning addressed the heart of the issue, Obamacare subsidy extensions. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the latest.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune says he offered Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer a vote to extend Obamacare subsidies. Remember, this is a key issue that Democrats have during this government shutdown showdown. But Thune says Schumer rejected this, instead insisting a guarantee that these subsidies will pass. Instead of just a simple vote that's likely to fail because of Republican pushback. Now, House Speaker Mike Johnson was asked this morning if he would mirror Thune's approach and offer a similar vote to House Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries. He didn't say no, but he also highlighted the complexity of the issue and the fact that there are various opinions on Obamacare to begin with. Watch both Speaker Johnson and Chuck Schumer this morning.
I said none of us can guarantee an outcome on that. I have said consistently all along, this is part of the deliberative process. We're going to debate and discuss that. It's a very complicated, complex matter. There are no income caps on that. By the way, did you know if you're a hardworking taxpayer, middle-class earner, and your family's struggling to put food on the table, did you know that you are subsidizing wealthy people's health care with that subsidy? You probably didn't. Premiums have risen by some estimates 60% since Obamacare was enacted into law in 2010. There's no way to repeal and replace it because it's too deeply ingrained right now. We have to improve it.
they say there's nothing to negotiate. That's got to change soon. Has to, for the sake of the American people. Democrats want to reopen the government as soon as possible so people can get back to work, so government services are not interrupted. But we need to fix the ACA premiums right now.
Now, senators this afternoon voted once again for a 10th time on the Republicans' proposal to reopen the government. It failed yet again, failing to get the Democrat support that it needed. Now, as far as negotiations go, the fact that Thune said Schumer rejected his proposal to have a vote on Obamacare subsidies indicates that any attempt at negotiations are hitting up against a brick wall at this point, making it appear that this government shutdown could last for a lot longer. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
From the government shutdown to trade tensions, Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins opened up about the current situation with our nation's farmers earlier.
We have to get off this hamster wheel of government payment after government payment after government payment to these farmers. They don't want these checks. They want to be able to sell their product. For the long term, we are opening up these markets so that we are not so reliant on countries like China.
Rollins' comments come as President Trump is calling out China. He described their soybean cuts as an economically hostile act. China is the world's largest market for the commodity. In response, the president said he is considering ending U.S. trade with China involving cooking oil and goods. Today, Rollins said she is in discussions with Japan and South American countries to get into those markets. She also noted that some aid to farmers had been frozen due to the government shutdown. President Trump said he might attend the Supreme Court to watch arguments in the case against his administration's tariffs. Here's a clip.
If we don't have the use of tariffs, we have no national security. This country will have no financial security, will not have national security. And the people that brought the lawsuit are people that are aligned with foreign nations that are now being treated fairly as opposed to just ripping us off and ripping us asunder. So, but if we are not allowed to use what other people use against us, there's no defense. It'll be a disaster for America. That's why I think I'm going to go to the Supreme Court to watch it. I've not done that, and I had some pretty big cases. I think it's one of the most important cases ever brought because we will be defenseless against the world.
A dozen states and a group of small businesses have challenged Trump's sweeping tariffs, a centerpiece of his economic agenda. Trump says the levies are reciprocal tariffs that match what other countries impose on U.S. exports. The court has agreed to hear the case in November. A federal judge has ordered immigration officers in the Chicago area to wear body cameras. The judge said she was, quote, a little startled after seeing tear gas and other measures being used against protesters. District Judge Sarah Ellis pointed to images and footage of clashes between agents and demonstrators. Ellis said, quote, I live in Chicago if folks haven't noticed, and I'm not blind, right? Ellis ruled last week that agents in the area must wear badges as well. A Justice Department attorney said the images and footage in question were from, quote, one-sided and selectively edited media reports. He also said it wouldn't be possible to immediately distribute body cameras. Protesters have gathered outside ICE facilities and have filmed incidents involving agents in the nation's third largest city. The Department of Homeland Security says demonstrators are impeding their enforcement efforts. DHS added that immigration officers have been subjected to increasing violence and doxing. President Trump confirms that he's authorized covert CIA operations in Venezuela and says he's also considering U.S. land strikes there. The announcement marks a major step in the administration's fight against drug cartels and puts greater pressure on Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro. Here's the latest.
Speaking from the Oval Office yesterday, President Trump said he'd approve covert CIA actions inside Venezuela. The move expands U.S. intelligence and military operations against what Trump calls a narco state run by President Nicolas Maduro.
I authorized for two reasons, really. Number one, they have emptied their prisons into the United States of America. And the other thing are drugs. We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela. And a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, so you get to see that. But we're going to stop them by land also.
Trump says the CIA mission works alongside U.S. military strikes already underway. Since early September, U.S. forces have carried out at least 5 attacks on boats the administration says were involved in drug trafficking. Trump says those strikes have almost totally stopped drug smuggling by sea, and now his administration is looking at possible land operations targeting Venezuelan cartels. Venezuelan officials are calling the CIA authorization a violation of international law and accuse Washington of trying to destabilize the country. When asked Wednesday if the CIA was authorized to remove Maduro from power, Trump dismissed the question.
Oh, I don't want to answer a question like that. That's a ridiculous question for me to be given. Not really a ridiculous question, but wouldn't it be a ridiculous question for me to answer?
In Washington, members of Congress from both parties say the president's actions are effectively an act of war without seeking authorization from Congress. Senator Jeanne Shaheen, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, said the administration's covert operations slide the U.S. closer to outright conflict with no transparency or guardrails. Meanwhile, the U.S. Coast Guard says it seized about 100,000 pounds of cocaine since August as part of a massive crackdown on drug smuggling in the Eastern Pacific. The Coast Guard says the operation, called Pacific Viper, has already stopped 34 boats and led to 86 arrests of suspected traffickers from Central and South America. Rear Admiral Jeffrey Novak called the results remarkable, saying Coast Guard crews are dismantling narco-terror networks and scouring smuggling routes in the Pacific. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says Pacific Viper is a crucial weapon in the fight against foreign drug cartels and proof the U.S. is reestablishing maritime dominance.
Earlier, White House Press Secretary Leavitt also answered questions from reporters about the strikes on boats carrying drugs from cartels in waters outside the U.S.
The president's been very clear, and he's been very transparent about these strikes, releasing classified video, unclassifying that video, declassifying it rather for all of you to see, and to let the public and lawmakers know with each of these strikes. And, there should be no surprise for this. The president campaigned on using every lever of power to go after the drug cartels who have been trafficking illicit poison into our country for far too long.
Leavitt said the strikes are proving successful as less boats are arriving to the U.S. shores carrying drugs, and that these strikes will continue. President Trump authorized the CIA to conduct covert operations inside Venezuela. Joining us to discuss is Gerard Filitti, senior counsel at the Lawfare Project and attorney specializing in counterterrorism and international law. So good afternoon, Gerard. So what does it involve here for the CIA to conduct these operations inside Venezuela?
Well, what this involved is a presidential finding that there is a danger, a threat to the national security of the United States that's served by the CIA conducting operations, covert operations within Venezuela. This is something that is within the president's authority under Article 2 of our Constitution. Has been done by many presidents in the past, whether dealing with narco traffickers or intelligence issues. So this is now the assets of the CIA are being set to use upon narco trafficking and the drug trade in Venezuela.
How does this intersect with international law?
Well, international law is a little bit of a gray area when it comes to espionage. It's something that everyone does, but is not explicitly covered by permission from international bodies. It's something that is understood to be within the purview of the United States or any country when acting in legitimate self-defense. And this is the issue. President Trump has identified narco trafficking, has identified these drug cartels as a clear and present danger to the United States, a national security threat, given the devastating impact that they've had. So this gives the United States the ability to use its assets, military and intelligence, to defend itself, which is acceptable under international law.
And Gerard, I would also like to know if things such as this is rare or not. Is this new, or are there historical precedents for the CIA conducting these operations in Venezuela?
There are historical precedents for using the CIA for narco trafficking. It's played a role in the CIA has developed more and more counter-narcotics assets and abilities over the years, starting from South America in the 1990s, going into Panama as well, Central America, and overseas in Africa as well. Drug trafficking has also been linked to terrorism, to Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran-backed factions. So the CIA has gradually developed its expertise in narco trafficking over time. So now is the time to employ it, according to President Trump, in Venezuela.
Do you think it could have any impact on international relations, particularly in the region?
Well, international relations with Venezuela were not good to begin with under President Maduro, who is operating as a dictator there. So that is not likely to change, not likely to be any better for this. But this is also, narco trafficking is an issue that affects other neighboring countries as well. And they're just as happy for the Trump administration and their allies to deal with these issues so that they don't have domestic problems in other Latin American and South American countries from narco trafficking, from drug cartels. So this is not something that's likely to dampen relations with anyone other than Venezuela, but is actually a good thing for the region.
So you're saying relations with Venezuela wasn't good in the first place, but I don't know. Is this a little bit different? Because in your mind, is there a risk for escalation between the U.S. And Venezuela in terms of, possible conflict?
Well, there's always the risk for escalation, and that is the concern. Nicolas Maduro, the leader of Venezuela, is not seen as legitimate by the United States and by many governments. He has refused to seat popularly elected parliamentarians in the last election, so he's essentially operating as a dictator, which makes him very much a pariah among Western nations. Among the few allies that he has are Russia and Communist China. So this is a situation where American intervention, if it's not explicit as a military action against Venezuela, helps to shape the people in the country who are already opposed to Maduro and might lead to a beneficial outcome.
Also, Gerard, do you have any guesses as to perhaps how might Venezuela's regime and its allies respond in light of this?
Well, I think we will hear a lot of outrage. We will hear emotions being put before the United Nations and other international bodies. But I don't expect to see any military action unless, of course, the United States takes military action within the boundaries of Venezuela. Right now, interdictions have taken place in international waters, and there's very little that Venezuela can do to that effect other than purposely attack American interests, which would be the type of escalation that no one really wants. So right now, I don't see Venezuela doing anything more than showing diplomatic outrage, but they will probably exercise their right to defend themselves if they see an incursion by American military.
So you brought up international bodies. I'm wondering, will the UN intervene, likely or unlikely?
It's not likely that the UN will intervene. The United States sits on the Security Council, so we'll have a veto over anything that is put before it. So we will basically hear a lot of rhetoric. We will hear a lot of angry language. But between the United States and its allies, I think that the UK, France, Germany will all align that Maduro is an illegitimate leader and that whatever Venezuela puts forth will not have carrying much weight.
So, Gerard, with the time left here, I want to ask you about another topic. A federal judge, temporarily blocked President Trump's plan to lay off federal employees during this government shutdown. So on this, generally speaking, do courts have the power to completely block the executive branch's layoffs?
Courts do have a power to some extent. We have seen that with another injunction earlier in the Trump administration, where the court instructed the Trump administration to hold off on some of the Doge firings. However, ultimately, as we've seen the Supreme Court do, the courts are deferential to the administration's perspective. So this is likely a temporary stay, and when this is appealed, we're likely to continue seeing the layoffs. At the end of the day, when these positions, when these jobs are not funded and there's no congressional appropriation, then there's no justification, no entitlement to these jobs, which is why President Trump is firing people instead of just suspending them.
But I want to ask you further here. Can a president use a shutdown to permanently remove parts of the government or programs without Congress?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, and I think we may very well end up seeing the Supreme Court weigh in on this. I think the way that President Trump is arguing or looking at this situation is if Congress does not actually appropriate money for a program, then that program cannot exist. And if the program or department cannot exist because there's no money for it, then it can't have employees. So I think this is the justification that Trump is using, and I think the courts may very well side with him on this.
Okay, Gerard, maybe I'll just ask you one more question here. Does executive power become stronger or stay the same during shutdowns?
Executive power stays the same in theory, but effectively it depends on which departments are operating into what capacity. We know, for example, that DHS, Homeland Security, and the Defense Department have been funded by a previous bill, so they continue operating pretty much as normal through the shutdown. But otherwise, everyone is feeling the pain of a shutdown, and not much work is getting done until these departments, these people are all funded to come back to work.
Well, all right, Gerard, always great to speak with you. Thank you for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
The Trump administration is withholding more than $40 million from California over English language rules for truck drivers. Stay tuned for that story after this break.
I was a young dad of 3 amazing kids. I was finally following my dreams. Just when you feel like life is starting to come together, you get kind of hit in the face. I was born with a congenital heart defect and had open heart surgery as a kid. I was supposed to go to the heart doctor once a year, and I finally went. He listened to my heart, and I'll never forget, he sat back and he said, yeah, it's time for open heart surgery, or you risk your aorta rupturing, and that's it. I was scared out of my mind. The night before my open heart surgery, I made a goodbye video for my kids. Be strong. Take care of your mom. I love you guys.
Seeing, all the kids hug him goodbye and hoping that they were going to be able to hug him again.
I love you. But I did make it, thanks to the work of the American Heart Association. So that's why I'm asking you to join me. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help get the next person trained in CPR, get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care, as well as fund the next medical breakthrough like these heart valves that helped save my life. When you give $19 a month with your credit card, we'll send you this special t-shirt to show you're a part of our community of monthly donors.
I'm most grateful that I get to have a husband that I get to grow old with, and a husband that gets to be there for his children.
I believe without the American Heart Association, I would not be here today. If this can happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody. Your donation can literally help save a life. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure natural power of Pure Tang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Pure Tang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
The Trump administration is withholding nearly $41 million in federal highway safety funds from California, saying the state failed to enforce English language proficiency rules for commercial truck drivers. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said California is the only state refusing to ensure truckers can read road signs and communicate with law enforcement, calling it a fundamental safety issue. California officials deny violating federal law, saying state rules already require English proficiency and that all commercial road tests are conducted in English. Governor Newsom's office says California drivers have a fatal crash rate nearly 40% below the national average. The funding freeze affects money from the Motor Carrier Safety Assistance Program, which supports inspections and traffic enforcement. California must prove compliance before the funds are restored. The race for New York City mayor is entering its final stretch with just a few weeks to go before Election Day. Democratic Socialist and frontrunner Zoran Mamdani, former Governor Andrew Cuomo, and Republican Curtis Sliwa will face off tonight in their first televised debate. The candidates are expected to clash over key issues including crime, housing, and the future of Rikers Island. Cuomo is pushing to rebuild the jail complex, while Mamdani wants to close it and use smaller community facilities, a plan Cuomo calls reckless and a blueprint for chaos. Meanwhile, outgoing Mayor Eric Adams is staying on the sidelines, declining to endorse anyone for now, but vowing to keep socialism out of New York City. The debate begins at 7 p.m. local time. Former President Barack Obama weighing in on the Virginia governor's race that is now in its final stretch. Former Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger released a pair of campaign ads featuring Obama. In it, he said, "Virginia's elections are among the most important in the country this year." The former president went on to criticize Republicans, saying they're attacking abortion access and women's rights, raising costs for working families, and favoring billionaires. Spanberger's opponent, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears' office, reacted, saying the ads show that Spanberger is desperate and is leaning on liberal elites. The Virginia race is only one of two gubernatorial elections this November. It's being viewed as a bellwether for next year's midterms. California gubernatorial candidate Katie Porter is making headlines after two viral videos captured her intense exchanges. In a recent interview, Porter says she wants her supporters to know she's owning up to her actions. NTD's Christina Corona has the story.
California Democratic gubernatorial candidate and former lawmaker Katie Porter stated that she could have handled things better after viral videos surfaced showing tense exchanges with the reporter and a staffer. In one clip, Porter threatened to walk out on CBS California correspondent Julie Watts during an interview that went viral last week.
Well, to those voters, okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
Every other candidate has answered
I don't care.
follow-ups.
I don't care.
In another video obtained by Politico, Porter is seen using profanity at a staffer who was standing behind her during a 2021 meeting with the Biden administration.
And other problems, and the state could lose. Get out of my shot.
The staffer was trying to inform Porter about climate issues, but she also criticized the staffer for previously appearing in the background.
Paris climate report.
Okay, it does. Okay, you also were in my shot before that. Stay out of my shot.
Porter appeared on KTLA's Inside California Politics, which aired Tuesday night, to address the videos.
When I look at those videos, I want people to know that I understand that I could have handled things better. I think I'm known as someone who's able to handle tough questions, who's willing to answer questions. I think people who know me know I can be tough, but I need to do a better job expressing appreciation for the amazing work that my team does.
Porter says she wants voters to understand her reasons for running, highlighting her goal of ensuring California has a governor who will act firmly and address the state's affordability crisis. Porter also said this week that she had apologized to the staff member. While holding herself accountable for the clips, Porter said her supporters back her because they want a strong candidate who will fight for the state. Christina Corona, NTD News.
What is the mood and atmosphere like in Israel following the initial phase of the peace deal brokered by Trump and his team? We get an on-the-ground view. Stay tuned.
Where did the time go? Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. Oh, how did I get here? I can see now.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
You're so right for me, and I'm right for you. I love the things you do, like sweet tasting wine. Your lips are so divine. Your loving turns me on. My lonely days are gone. That's why I'm never gonna let you go. Never gonna let you go, babe. I'm never gonna let you go. No, no, never gonna let you go.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My 15-year-old son, Ethan, and I had a fun and relaxing morning. We returned home, and Ethan walked to his best friend's house an hour later. I heard the ambulance scream by the street, carrying my beautiful boy. Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. He had zero chance of survival. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox.
How do you feel?
That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
David, would you give any advice?
First thing you do is not keep your ammunition with your weapons, and that your weapons need to be locked at all times.
Airports across North America are dealing with an apparent cyber attack. Pro-Palestinian messages praising the terror group Hamas were broadcast at airports in Pennsylvania and British Columbia, Canada earlier this week. Officials told Fox News the first incident happened at Harrisburg International Airport in Pennsylvania Tuesday, where an unauthorized user gained access to the airport's PA system. The hacker identified themselves as Turkish Cyber Islam and played messages saying Free Palestine along with profanity about President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Similar breaches were reported in Canadian airports where pro-Hamas slogans appeared on airport screens and over loudspeakers. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy called the hack unacceptable and said federal officials are working with airports to investigate it. In Canada, officials told the Epoch Times they're working with federal law enforcement to ensure there were no impacts on safety and to prevent similar incidents in the future. Israel says it's identified 2 more hostages among the bodies returned from Gaza, part of a deal brokered to end the war between Israel and Hamas terrorists. Families of those freed say their loved ones endured horrific conditions while in captivity.
As we knew, Alon survived in the tunnels with a shrapnel wound in his right eye and a head injury from the shrapnel he sustained. During captivity, he was stitched up carelessly while the shrapnel was still in his body, causing him to suffer from headaches. He talks about how, during captivity, he saw how the people of Israel fought for him.
Israel's army says the bodies of 27-year-old Imbar Heyman and 39-year-old Sergeant Muhammad al-Atarshash were handed over by Hamas last night. Heyman was the last known female hostage still in Gaza after being kidnapped from a music festival on October 7, 2023. President Trump says the U.S. is helping Israel recover the bodies of those still missing. He called it a gruesome process involving remains buried under rubble and in tunnels. While the remaining living hostages have now been released under the U.S. brokered truce, there are concerns over the recovery of hostages who died in captivity. After lab tests, an Israeli official said one of the bodies is not that of a hostage. Continuing in the Middle East, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today commemorated fallen Israeli soldiers. The Israeli leader said Israel will achieve all goals of the Gaza war it set out to accomplish.
Whoever raises their hand on us already knows that they will pay a very heavy price for their aggression.
We are determined to complete the victory that will affect our lives for many years.
Netanyahu was speaking at a state ceremony for fallen soldiers during the two-year war with the Hamas terror group. The Israeli leader paid homage to what he described as the wonderful sons and daughters who gave their lives in battle, calling them the foundation stones of Israel's revival. He acknowledged the diverse groups that fought for Israel, including Jews, Christians, Muslims, and Bedouins. Nearly 1,000 Israeli soldiers have been killed since the October 7th attack. More than 6,000 others were left wounded. And Israel says preparations are ongoing with Egypt to open the major Rafah border crossing with Gaza for the movement of people. And today, President Trump has warned Hamas of the consequences if it kills more people during the current stage of the peace deal. He wrote on Truth Social, quote, "If Hamas continues to kill people in Gaza, which was not the deal, we'll have no choice but to go in and kill them." Earlier, a video shows 7 men being dragged into a circle, forced to their knees, and then shot from behind. The armed men are wearing headbands like those worn by Hamas. A Hamas source said it took place in Gaza City on Monday, but this has not been independently verified. Joining us to discuss is Matthew Faraci. He's the founder of Gideon 300 and is currently in Jerusalem, Israel. So thank you for joining us today. Can you, first of all, to start off here, can you describe the mood and atmosphere in Israel that you're seeing following the initial acceptance of the peace deal brokered by Trump and his team?
Yeah, so I was actually helping cover this story on the day that President Trump came and visited Israel. And obviously the mood was, everybody was on cloud 9. I drove all over Jerusalem. There were parties in the streets, people dancing, people cheering, people celebrating, because you have to remember that Israel is a very small country. The Jewish nation is a very small nation. We are all family. And so when something happens, it feels like family. The other thing you have to remember is because of that dynamic that I just gave you, everybody knows somebody who was a hostage or who was in Gaza or who, all of these horrific circumstances since October 7th have touched every single person in Israel. So it was collectively felt by everybody in Israel. But I think it's also important to underscore that rather than looking at the event earlier this week as the end of the war, in some sense, it's the beginning of a new phase. And the beginning of that new phase is, now that we have a quote unquote deal, how do we enforce it? Now, the early signs, and I'm sure you're going to want to get into this, but the early signs are that President Trump is taking the enforcement, as you just alluded to, taking the enforcement very seriously. That's part of the concern in Israel is we have a deal, but how's that deal going to hold together? And that's the sense of wait and see that also lingers in the nation.
So, Matt, I want to get into this point that President Trump just posted on Truth Social. He said, if Hamas continues to kill people in Gaza, we'll have no choice but to go in and kill them. What does go in and kill them mean? Does that mean we're going to see boots on the ground from the U.S.? Can you interpret that for us?
Well, if you look at the president's 20-point plan and you look at the outline of it, according to the latest reports from the president, we are in phase 2. Okay. Now, the issue is that think about the practical reality of what's happening on the ground. Okay. The first day that the IDF pulled out of Gaza, Hamas came up out of the tunnels and started shooting people left and right. In fact, it was happening while the president was speaking at the Knesset. Why did that not happen previously? Because the IDF had Hamas pinned down in the tunnels. And when the IDF withdrew, Hamas wanted to assert their authority over the population and make sure that no other rival clans could step up. They've been doing that ever since, flagrantly just doing that ever since. So again, this is part of the issue. You're dealing with a terrorist group. I think people, because of goings on and funded by Qatar and others in social media, people don't think of Hamas as what it is, a group of thugs. And I think I'm being really charitable by using that term. As far as your question about boots on the ground, my guess, and it's a guess, is at this point, again, because we're entering phase 2, one of the things phase 2 calls for is this kind of interim peace authority. The issue is that this interim peace authority hasn't been set up yet. So who's the only people there at the moment, at least that we know of, is the IDF. So common sense would suggest that what the president is saying is, if Hamas doesn't stop it, he would then ask the IDF to go in there and clean up some of the savagery that's taking place right now.
So in terms of governance, you brought that up just now a little bit. Do you think it's possible for Hamas to not have any role in the future governance of Gaza? What are the difficulties of that, and how likely is it?
Well, here, you asked a loaded question, okay? So you're going to get what you deserve. So here's not just Hamas. So you have this larger problem. The Palestinian Authority, the PA, which also has a presence in Judea and Samaria, aka the West Bank, is not that much better than Hamas. They're corrupt. One survey that we saw after October 7th showed that 80% of the people in the Palestinian Authority were supportive of Hamas and what Hamas did on October 7th. So what you're talking about is much bigger than Hamas, and that's one of my big questions is the plan calls for this technocratic, sort of benign Palestinian government that would rule people fairly and, keep the trains running on time, give traffic tickets, all the things that a civil municipal authority should be doing. And one of the big questions being asked here in Israel is, who is that? Who are those people? Where are they? Where are the so-called moderates? Because if they exist, there's not a lot of people that know who they are. And so when you say Hamas, you're also talking about the Palestinian Authority and other groups that exist both within Gaza and in Judea and Samaria. And it's kind of like when you go to the cereal aisle and you have 47 different brand names, but they're really made by two companies. That's, I think, a good analogy.
So in terms of this 20-point plan that Trump came up with, you mentioned there are some concerns with that. How are Israel citizens viewing this plan brokered by the Trump administration?
I think most of the population right now is still in celebrate the hostages are home mode. And thank God we're getting a break from the war mode, because for the last 2 years, people in Israel have been subject to all kinds of things as a result of the war, not the least of which, of course, is the constant missiles being fired, running to shelters, folks being drafted into the army to be in reserve duty. Life has been very disrupted in Israel since October 8th. And so there's a collective sense of relief. At the same time, I would say among the keener observers and of the leaders in Israel, and I'm sure they're talking to the Trump administration on a daily basis, they're now definitely in day after mode, which is, how do we solve this? How do we keep this stable? How do we get the rest of the bodies of the hostages back? And of course, another issue, 2,000 very violent, dangerous people were released from Israeli prisons as part of this hostage deal. One of the people that was released, for example, killed a mother in front of her 6 children. Another was responsible for killing several dozen Israelis on a bus. What do you do about that? So that's why I'm saying there's a euphoria here, and definitely an appreciation for the United States and for the president with what he's done. But there's also a general sense of, this is the Middle East. Now we get into the nitty-gritty details. How do we make this work?
Do you think enforcement is one of the options that could actually make this work, is to make sure that Hamas lives up to what it agrees to?
I think that's the only option. Again, this is a terrorist group that we are dealing with, a terrorist group that is popular, a terrorist group that is absorbing new recruits all the time, a terrorist group that benefits from an ideology that is literally in the water in the areas in which it occupies. In other words, they teach little children this ideology from the time they're young, that this is what they should do. So you're talking about a multi-generational effort here. And at least temporarily, if you think about what the president has done, for example, with the National Guard in Washington, D.C., the only way to get crime down that was rampant was to have very robust enforcement from the National Guard. Same thing here. the only way that's going to work, and I don't know whose boots on the ground this is going to be, but it's going to have to be some serious boots on the ground because terrorists are not going to willingly give up on being terrorists. We have heard some rumors that some of the remaining Hamas leadership has moved into southern Syria. Southern Syria is another under the radar hotspot that people haven't been talking about a lot. The regime in Damascus has, we're not sure if it's the regime or people that are aligned with the regime, but definitely ISIS forces have come into southern Syria and they've been slaughtering Christians and Druze, and they've also been threatening Israel. And there's some concern that the terrorists from Gaza are linking up with the terrorists in southern Syria. So again, there's some real existential issues going on here.
So Matt, I understand you've said that you're concerned about what could happen now in the West Bank. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, well, a lot of these 2,000 terrorists who were released, it would be very natural for them to go into the area of Judea Samaria, also known as the West Bank. And, you know, many people in Israel remember the fact that Sinwar himself was actually released from prison in a similar exchange. And he went on to mastermind the October 7th attacks and run Hamas for a good deal of the war. Therefore, you've got 2,000 other people similarly who have just been released. And there's a real, I talked to a lot of terrorism experts here in Israel. They are very concerned that there will be a sharp increase in violence in Judea and Samaria as a result of these releases. I saw a father and a son on X just in Gaza today saying, hey, we're going to commit another October 7th and my son's going to join me. So again, the mentality has not only not changed, it's even further hardened. And so the only solution, and again, very promising signs from the president here, it looks like the president's saying, I'm not going to give you an inch, so don't try anything. And if you do try something, we're going to have robust enforcement. That's the only language that people understand in the Middle East. And that's the only option.
Okay, Matt, let me ask you just one last question here. How do you see this conflict ending? Is it through a peace agreement? Is it through the elimination, complete eradication of Hamas, or some other thing?
Well, I think that the core issue here is that none of these terror groups can do what they do without the support of countries like Iran and Qatar and others. And so the key here, long term, and there's an ideological problem which also has to be fixed. So maybe let's call that the long term. The key in the short term here is you have to cut off the financing. You alluded earlier in your broadcast to Free Palestine messages everywhere. Those are on social media, being pushed very hard by the CCP. Remember, the Hamas leadership went to Beijing and received the support of the CCP. And so if you look at the CCP and their allies, and again, Qatar and Iran, etc., they're pushing this propaganda. They're trying to keep this part of the war going. And only when you eliminate that funding in the short term do you have the chance to A, stop the onslaught of very harmful propaganda online, but also to literally defund these terror groups so they can't do what they're doing. If they don't have money, they don't have missiles, they don't have training, they don't have sophisticated weapons. If you look at the Houthis in Yemen, they've been testing, in some cases, weapons provided to them from Iran. So you have to cut off the head of the snake. And at least from the Israel side, that's talked about a lot in Israel, and how that's going to be accomplished is something that's yet to be seen.
Well, all right, Matt, it's been really good to talk to you today. Thank you for giving us your time.
Thanks for your time.
The Department of Justice has made its first Antifa-related terrorism charges. A federal grand jury has indicted 2 alleged Antifa members for an attack on an ICE facility in Texas in July. Cameron Arnold and Zachary Evitz have been charged with providing material support to terrorism and attempting to murder federal officials. In a statement, FBI Director Kash Patel described this as a planned and coordinated terrorist attack where armed extremists tried to murder U.S. officers. This comes just weeks after President Trump signed an executive order to classify Antifa as a terrorist organization. Patel said the FBI has made over 200, or rather 20, arrests tied to this case and related to Antifa networks. A new report reveals that more than 500 U.S. universities may be helping China's military advance its technology. We take a closer look at what this means for U.S. national security after this break.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options. Only at selectspecs.com.
Kids love it. Parents trust it.
Obviously.
Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiang Campus courses led by expert educators.
This is spectacular.
Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more.
Wow.
All while having fun.
Perfect.
Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Abused youth often feel safer on the street. Now, more than ever, that's the most dangerous place of all. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming, and no young person is ever turned away. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month to help a young person. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Your gift will show them they're loved. Homeless young people are afraid and alone with nowhere else to turn.
You want to know that there's somewhere you can go that's safe. So the Covenant House did that for us.
Please call now with your gift of $19 a month. We'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. Please don't wait. Your gift is the lifeline a young person needs now. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org. Thank you for saving precious lives.
A new report reveals that more than 500 U.S. universities have cooperated with researchers linked to the Chinese military in recent years. Experts warn those partnerships may be helping Beijing advance its defense technology. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has the report.
The study from private intelligence firm Strider Technologies found nearly 2,500 joint publications in 2024 alone. They covered fields like physics, engineering, and computer science. That's down from 2019, when more than 3,500 joint research papers were published. But it's still a major concern for national security officials. Despite government efforts to limit these partnerships, Strider says the practice remains widespread. American institutions have been fueling China's military advancements in areas like anti-jamming communications and hypersonic weapons. A House committee has been sounding the alarm too. It's urging tighter visa screening for Chinese scholars and stronger protections for U.S. research. The DHS warns that the CCP continues to target American universities and companies to steal sensitive technology. The Justice Department says roughly 80% of economic espionage cases in the U.S. have links to China. In response, Congress is moving to limit U.S.-China research. It's introducing a new bill that would block federal funding for projects tied to China's military and putting tougher rules in place for university partnerships.
And for more exclusive China news and in-depth analysis, tune in to China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on NTD. The FCC yesterday said it's moving to stop a Hong Kong telecom carrier, HKT International, from operating in the United States over national security concerns. The FCC directed HKT to explain why the FCC should not launch revocation proceedings, citing its affiliation with China Unicom Americas. If finalized, it would prevent the company from providing international and domestic telecom services to and within the United States. Washington has taken a series of actions against China's telecom and tech industries in recent years. FCC Chair Brendan Carr said yesterday that the commission is working to ensure that Chinese-controlled entities that pose national security threats cannot connect to our telecom networks. The UK says it's facing an escalating threat from hostile states such as China, Iran, and Russia. The head of Britain's domestic intelligence agency, MI5, issued another warning yesterday, the second one this week.
When it comes to China, the UK needs to defend itself resolutely against threats and seize the opportunities that demonstrably serve our nation.
He added that China is guilty of cyber espionage and luring academics to China. The head of the agency also said China is interfering in UK public life and harassing pro-democracy dissidents in Britain. His statements come just 2 days after MI5 warned that the country's politicians are being targeted by agents from China. Russia and Iran UK lawmakers are being warned of attempts to gain information through phishing attacks, blackmail, and the cultivation of long-term personal relationships. President Donald Trump is involved in plans for a new monument in the nation's capital, a triumphal arch. Trump personally came up with the design to commemorate the country's 250th anniversary next summer, according to a White House official. Small models have been made of the arch, which resembles France's Arch de Triomphe. The monument will be placed in a traffic circle near the Arlington Memorial Bridge, but it's unclear how the project will be funded or when it could be built. The Trump administration is seeking to make in vitro fertilization more accessible. What we can expect from the announcement later today, we bring it to you live.
Did you know Mathis Home has been giving their customers the best styles and value for 65 years? Come celebrate with 65th anniversary savings on everything in the store. This set is a great deal. You get the modern trestle table with 4 comfy side chairs, the complete set for just $8.89. With over 100 dining sets in stock, you're sure to find the one just right for your family and get free delivery. Get your new dining room now with 65th anniversary savings at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure, natural power of Pure Tang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Pure Tang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The walls surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time. And we sense that. But this little girl.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump saying his phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin today was productive. What do we know about the upcoming meeting of the two leaders? Trump announces India promised to stop buying oil from Russia, how India's foreign ministry is now responding. Social Security beneficiaries have been assured that their monthly checks will continue to arrive, but are there any circumstances where Social Security payments could be disrupted? While protests and harassment against ICE continue around the nation, ICE sees more than 100,000 applications come in. Jason Blair has the latest. A new report reveals more than 500 U.S. universities may be helping China's military advance its technology. We take a closer look at what this means for U.S. national security. The Trump administration is seeking to make in vitro fertilization more accessible. What we can expect from the upcoming announcement later today.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Thank you for staying with us. President Trump will be meeting next week with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Budapest, Hungary. Trump made the announcement just after his phone call with Putin today. In a post on Truth Social, the president said he had a very productive phone call with the Russian leader. They agreed to send their top-level advisors, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, to also meet next week for peace negotiations. That meeting location is yet to be determined. Here's what the White House said about the phone call.
It was a very good and productive call. It lasted more than 2 hours. There were various issues that were discussed. President Putin congratulated President Trump for solving the conflict in Israel and Gaza and bringing peace back to the Middle East. He also thanked the First Lady for her efforts to bring back children and save children in this brutal conflict. And the president feels like great progress was made on this call. They also agreed to have a high-level senior staff meeting convened as early as next week, which will then be followed by a meeting very likely between President Trump and President Putin as well. They talked about Budapest as being a location for that.
Tomorrow, Trump will be meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House. Trump said he will tell Zelensky about his conversation with Putin. Ukraine has been seeking U.S. Tomahawk long-range missiles lately, and that's likely to be a topic of discussion tomorrow. The White House said Trump still believes it's possible to have Putin and Zelensky meet in person. Trump suggested that Russia could trade with the U.S. once the war is over and believes that recent success in the Middle East will help in negotiations to end the Russia-Ukraine war. Meanwhile, President Trump, in another post on Truth Social, wrote, quote, "If Hamas continues to kill people in Gaza, which was not the deal, we will have no choice but to go in and kill them." We turn now to Capitol Hill, where the government shutdown enters the 16th day. Amid the gridlock, House Speaker Mike Johnson this morning addressed the heart of the issue, Obamacare subsidy extensions. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the latest.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune says he offered Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer a vote to extend Obamacare subsidies. Remember, this is a key issue that Democrats have during this government shutdown showdown. But Thune says Schumer rejected this, instead insisting a guarantee that these subsidies will pass. Instead of just a simple vote that's likely to fail because of Republican pushback. Now, House Speaker Mike Johnson was asked this morning if he would mirror Thune's approach and offer a similar vote to House Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries. He didn't say no, but he also highlighted the complexity of the issue and the fact that there are various opinions on Obamacare to begin with. Watch both Speaker Johnson and Chuck Schumer this morning.
I said none of us can guarantee an outcome on that. I have said consistently all along, this is part of the deliberative process. We're going to debate and discuss that. It's a very complicated, complex matter. There are no income caps on that. By the way, did you know if you're a hardworking taxpayer, middle-class earner, and your family's struggling to put food on the table, did you know that you are subsidizing wealthy people's health care with that subsidy? You probably didn't. Premiums have risen by some estimates 60% since Obamacare was enacted into law in 2010. There's no way to repeal and replace it because it's too deeply ingrained right now. We have to improve it.
They say there's nothing to negotiate. That's got to change soon. Has to, for the sake of the American people. Democrats want to reopen the government as soon as possible so people can get back to work, so government services are not interrupted. But we need to fix the ACA premiums right now.
Now, senators this afternoon voted once again for a 10th time on the Republicans' proposal to reopen the government. It failed yet again, failing to get the Democrat support that it needed. Now, as far as negotiations go, the fact that Thune said Schumer rejected his proposal to have a vote on Obamacare subsidies indicates that any attempt at negotiations are hitting up against a brick wall at this point, making it appear that this government shutdown could last for a lot longer. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Social Security beneficiaries have been assured that their monthly checks will continue to arrive. Joining us to discuss is Anthony Esposito, CEO of Ascalon 6 Capital. Good afternoon to you, Anthony. I want to start off with this. What makes these payments, Social Security payments, safe even during a government shutdown? And what if it's a prolonged one?
Yeah, so the payments, thank you so much for having me. The payments are safe here because they're funded through the Social Security Trust Fund. We make those payments personally as citizens working in the country. Every time we get paid, we're making a payment to that fund. That fund in return is paying out to the recipients of Social Security. And as you move along, there should be money left in the fund, ideally, for those of us that are paying today. So we don't need appropriations. We don't need anything from Congress at this point. The fund is liquid, and the fund is making payments and will continue to do so, even if the government shutdown continues for the foreseeable future.
But we're seeing furloughs on the Social Security Administration's workforce, right? Is there going to be impact of that?
Yeah, so they have about, the last number I heard was just over 6,000 employees of Social Security have been furloughed. So with that, there will be a decrease in service, right? Advancing cases, complaints, moving forward on adjustments, or things of that nature. The payments will continue to go out. The service, the level of service that you'll see from Social Security will definitely decrease because there's much less people working there. And that, again, is a reason that we should be coming to the table and getting this CR passed so that we can reopen the government, get to a better place as services are restored to the United States citizens.
And can you speak to what is the current financial health of the Social Security Trust funds? Is there any circumstance where the payments could actually be disrupted?
Currently, no. The payments look solid. From everything that I see and everyone I've spoken to, the payments look solid. And the shutdown right now, there's no expectation that payments will be disrupted at any time during the shutdown. I don't see any possibility personally that we go long enough where there is a real disruption of payments.
Okay, so are the funds enough to last, well into the future? Do Americans need to worry about their payments getting smaller?
No, not in the foreseeable future. I think the first time that there was a shutdown of the government under Trump was his first term. We went for 35 days. There was a minimal hit to GDP at that point in economic activity. The stock market was actually up 10%. We came through just fine, and there was no pause in Social Security payments at that time. I would expect that we're running through the same playbook this time on all counts, in particular Social Security payments.
Okay. In general, how is the funding of Social Security being done? For example, how does factors like aging population and workforce participation rates influence the funding?
Yeah, that's definitely a broader question and a longer term question. Whether the fund is healthy longer term, whether we have enough contribution from the working people to pay those that have retired and are eligible for Social Security, and quite honestly, whether we are making payments from the Social Security fund to legal American citizens and not misappropriating those funds are all great questions. As we move forward, as we have workplace participation shrinking from previous generations and an aging population as far as the baby boomers and those that are taking from the fund, we are in a position where we need to make sure that we continue to fund this properly, and there are adjustments that are going to need to be made. Will that take place or be a part of this shutdown and this conversation? No. Moving forward, yes, there's definitely a concern that we will have enough in the fund to be liquid and to continue the process of Social Security payments for those that are eligible once they retire.
Okay, Anthony, and there's another thing on my mind because we did see the delay of the release of the consumer price index, right, a bit earlier during this shutdown. Is that going to impact the calculation of the 2026 cost of living adjustment?
I think that they'll, first of all, on from an investment point of view, most larger funds, hedge funds, money managers have their own models and are moving through their investment process based on those models. And they essentially look at the government report for a final number. Those final numbers, let's be honest, have been way off. The BLS, for example, has been disastrous over the past few years. So, will it have an effect on inflation? We will catch up. Once we reopen and those numbers start to get issued, we're going to get to the same place anyway. The market is clearly not overly concerned with the fact that we're not getting those numbers now. The data is still available, and it's not going to have a major impact on where inflation ultimately ends up. Most people, most private models, I would go out on a limb from experience and say that most private models are actually more accurate than the actual government numbers. We're just looking for an official number from the government, which hopefully is accurate. But a delay in those numbers, I don't think there's an anyone should be overly concerned with the fact that those numbers are going to be delayed. They will come in, the data will come in, it will all catch up and fill in the gaps.
Okay, long-term wise, are there any solutions to ensure Social Security's sustainability? Because we have heard lawmakers talking about the funds potentially being depleted at a certain time.
There's been a few different items, right? The first one is, are we spending the money properly, the money that's in the fund? And then the second one is, you have inputs and outputs, right? So is the money being spent properly and appropriately? And then the second one is, how do we generate more revenue in the fund for the fund so that we have more to move on? There has been some talk, and I think President Trump has actually mentioned it in the past, of actually using some investment tools within the Social Security fund to grow with inflation, keep pace, and have enough there, or help have more of a liquid fund moving forward. So I think that we can look at potentially using some of that money to invest, or at least be in solid kind of inflationary investments where we're keeping pace. And then we have to obviously look at who is working and who's paying into the fund. Are the people that are working in this country paying their fair share into Social Security? And that includes the mass amount of jobs that were given to non-native born Americans over the Biden administration. What type of money is being paid by them into Social Security? It's not as much as it should be. And how do we address that issue?
Okay, Anthony, just one last question here on the government shutdown. Do you think it's going to cost the government more money or less in the long run for this shutdown? Because President Trump is talking about layoffs, right? So speaking in terms of, is this going to save money, or is this going to cost more once this shutdown is over?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think the short answer is this will benefit the U.S. government and the cost. The Democrats have put themselves in a corner. They've painted themselves in a corner, and they've actually, once again, in a great way, given the ball over to President Trump and the administration. The bottom line is this: there is a massive amount of fraud, waste, and abuse within the government. And by not negotiating, or at least voting on a continuing resolution and putting the shutdown in place, they've actually given the administration and Mr. Vogt the ability to move forward and trim fat that they might not have otherwise been able to trim. It is within their right to do so, but they've actually given a path to do that. It is really a case, again, and everyone says it, and I think it's very true, where President Trump is playing 5D chess and everyone else is playing checkers. So ultimately, I actually like the fact that we're shut down right now, not because of the pain that it's causing anyone on the table. I'm not for that. I'm not happy about that. I do think in the longer term, as we run a massive $2 trillion deficit in this country, we have $37 trillion in debt. Something needs to change. We need to fix all aspects of budget. This is actually going to give an opportunity to trim down costs, to trim fat, so that moving forward, we're actually trimming that deficit through this shutdown. So some shorter term pain here for sure, but I do see a path here where it is worthwhile this shutdown, and it actually becomes a benefit for America to kind of trim that fat, trim that spending, get that deficit lower, and then come out and move on.
Okay, Anthony, well said. Good to speak with you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
President Trump announces India promised to stop buying oil from Russia. How India's foreign ministry is now responding. We have that and more after this quick break.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Dave's Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Dave's enzyme fermented coffee.
Hunger in America is a crisis. Let's end it together. Our America. Built on hard work, determination, and grit. Sometimes the days run long, but hope, it never runs out, even when the food does, for America's veterans, working parents, even kids. Because in every corner of every town, even yours, millions of hard-working neighbors are facing a hunger crisis, many for the very first time. In this land of plenty, affording food shouldn't require second jobs and third shifts or choosing between your groceries and bills. Today, you can help change that. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, less than 63 cents a day, to help every neighbor get the food they urgently need. Because taking care of each other is what makes America strong. We're Feeding America, not just a name, but an action. Working with over 200 local food banks like the ones in your community, and demand is soaring.
You go to the grocery store, you spend $100, and $100 is a new $20 bill.
Even with 2 full-time jobs, it's hard to make ends meet.
These are tough times, but when we stand together, we become the very best of a strong America. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month can feed a family today. And your first gift can double an impact. Plus, we'll send you this free canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you're delivering.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Because you're not just giving food, you're fueling resilience for people across the nation. You're feeding America. Call or go online today to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double an impact.
Adopting you was the best decision in our life. And I am so proud to call you my son.
It's day 16 of the government shutdown as Democrats have dug in on their positions. Republicans are trying new ways to fund at least the essential parts of the federal workforce. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, has more.
Continue to maintain the position. We will sit down, have a bipartisan discussion to reopen the government, to address the Republican health care crisis, and to enact a spending agreement that actually makes life better for the American people. Because the American people are suffering.
Democrats maintain that they will not consider reopening government unless their policy demands are met. This despite the fact that the lapsed levels of government funding were set by Democrats, and despite the fact that the healthcare program that they allege is not providing for the American people and which has enhanced healthcare tax credits expiring by the end of the year was established and set by Democrats.
We are not asking Democrats to swallow any new Republican policies. We're not asking them to swallow any partisan policy riders. We're simply asking them to extend current funding levels for a few weeks while we work on full-year appropriations.
The Republican proposal to reopen government would extend current levels of government funding to allow for a regular appropriations process that would also include negotiations addressing Democratic healthcare concerns.
We're going to debate and discuss that. And there are debates and discussions going on our side of the aisle and on theirs. But to get everybody together and build that consensus is not possible until we get the government operating again and we stop holding. I get very upset about that. We stop holding the American people hostage for these ridiculous political games.
Senate Republicans put the House-passed defense appropriations bill to a vote as part of the new strategy of continuing the regular appropriations process despite being in a government shutdown.
So that if we can't reopen the entire government, we can at least make some progress toward securing paychecks for our troops and for defending our country. So this is Democrats' chance to make good on that promise.
Democrats in the Senate rejected the House-passed defense appropriations bill that would have extended annual funding for the Department of War. This means that active duty military personnel could miss their first paycheck starting next week. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Trump announced that India promised to stop buying oil from Russia, but now India's foreign ministry says it's not aware of a phone call between India's prime minister and President Trump yesterday. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has the latest.
He's assured me there will be no oil purchased from Russia. I don't know, maybe that's a breaking story. Can I say that? Would you say? There will be no oil. He's not buying his oil from Russia. It started.
President Trump on Wednesday night said that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi told him the country will stop buying oil from Russia. According to Trump, the reassurance was made during a phone call between himself and Modi. Now on Thursday, India's foreign ministry said this.
I am not aware of any conversation yesterday between the two leaders.
However, Trump did not specify whether the call took place yesterday or some time before that, and India's spokesperson only talked about yesterday. Russia is also weighing in on Trump's comments.
We rely upon the official statement issued by the India's foreign ministry. These statements are available to everyone, therefore we rely upon them.
And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the U.S. hopes that Japan will also stop buying oil from Russia. Bessent met with Japan's finance minister, saying they discussed the administration's expectation that Japan stop importing Russian energy. The U.S. says those countries should stop making business with Russia because Moscow uses the money to finance the war in Ukraine. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
From the government shutdown to trade tensions, Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins opened up about the current situation with our nation's farmers earlier.
We have to get off this hamster wheel of government payment after government payment after government payment to these farmers. They don't want these checks. They want to be able to sell their product. For the long term, we are opening up these markets so that we are not so reliant on countries like China.
Rollins' comments come as President Trump is calling out China. He described their soybean cuts as an economically hostile act. China is the world's largest market for the commodity. In response, the president said he is considering ending U.S. trade with China involving cooking oil and goods. Today, Rollins said she is in discussions with Japan and South American countries to get into those markets. She also noted that some aid to farmers had been frozen due to the government shutdown. President Trump said he might attend the Supreme Court to watch arguments in the case against his administration's tariffs. Here's a clip.
If we don't have the use of tariffs, we have no national security. This country will have no financial security, will not have national security. And the people that brought the lawsuit are people that are aligned with foreign nations that are now being treated fairly as opposed to just ripping us off and ripping us asunder. So, but if we are not allowed to use what other people use against us, there's no defense. It'll be a disaster for America. That's why I think I'm going to go to the Supreme Court to watch it. I've not done that, and I had some pretty big cases. I think it's one of the most important cases ever brought because we will be defenseless against the world.
A dozen states and a group of small businesses have challenged Trump's sweeping tariffs, a centerpiece of his economic agenda. Trump says the levies are reciprocal tariffs that match what other countries impose on U.S. exports. The court has agreed to hear the case in November. President Trump confirms that he's authorized covert CIA operations in Venezuela and says he's also considering U.S. land strikes there. The announcement marks a major step in the administration's fight against drug cartels and puts greater pressure on Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro. Here's the latest.
Speaking from the Oval Office yesterday, President Trump said he'd approve covert CIA actions inside Venezuela. The move expands U.S. intelligence and military operations against what Trump calls a narco state run by President Nicolas Maduro.
I authorized for two reasons, really. Number one, they have emptied their prisons into the United States of America. And the other thing are drugs. We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela. And a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, so you get to see that. But we're going to stop them by land also.
Trump says the CIA mission works alongside U.S. military strikes already underway. Since early September, U.S. forces have carried out at least 5 attacks on boats the administration says were involved in drug trafficking. Trump says those strikes have almost totally stopped drug smuggling by sea. And now his administration is looking at possible land operations targeting Venezuelan cartels. Venezuelan officials are calling the CIA authorization a violation of international law and accuse Washington of trying to destabilize the country. When asked Wednesday if the CIA was authorized to remove Maduro from power, Trump dismissed the question.
Oh, I don't want to answer a question like that. That's a ridiculous question for me to be given. Not really a ridiculous question, but wouldn't it be a ridiculous question for me to answer?
In Washington, members of Congress from both parties say the president's actions are effectively an act of war without seeking authorization from Congress. Senator Jeanne Shaheen, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, said the administration's covert operations slide the U.S. closer to outright conflict with no transparency or guardrails. Meanwhile, the U.S. Coast Guard says it seized about 100,000 pounds of cocaine since August as part of a massive crackdown on drug smuggling in the Eastern Pacific. The Coast Guard says the operation, called Pacific Viper, has already stopped 34 boats and led to 86 arrests of suspected traffickers from Central and South America. Rear Admiral Jeffrey Novak called the results remarkable, saying Coast Guard crews are dismantling narco-terror networks and scouring smuggling routes in the Pacific. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says Pacific Viper is a crucial weapon in the fight against foreign drug cartels and proof the U.S. is reestablishing maritime dominance.
Earlier, White House Press Secretary Leavitt also answered questions from reporters about the strikes on boats carrying drugs from cartels in waters outside the U.S.
The president's been very clear, and he's been very transparent about these strikes, releasing classified video, unclassifying that video, declassifying it rather for all of you to see, and to let the public and lawmakers know with each of these strikes. And, there should be no surprise for this. The president campaigned on using every lever of power to go after the drug cartels who have been trafficking illicit poison into our country for far too long.
Leavitt said the strikes are proving successful as less boats are arriving to the U.S. shores carrying drugs, and that these strikes will continue. The race for New York City mayor is entering its final stretch with just a few weeks to go before Election Day. Democratic Socialist and frontrunner Zohran Mamdani, former Governor Andrew Cuomo, and Republican Curtis Sliwa will face off tonight in their first televised debate. The candidates are expected to clash over key issues including crime, housing, and the future of Rikers Island. Cuomo is pushing to rebuild the jail complex, while Mamdani wants to close it and use smaller community facilities, a plan Cuomo calls reckless and a blueprint for chaos. Meanwhile, outgoing Mayor Eric Adams is staying on the sidelines, declining to endorse anyone for now, but vowing to keep socialism out of New York City. The debate begins at 7 p.m. local time. Former President Barack Obama weighing in on the Virginia governor's race that is now in its final stretch. Former Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger released a pair of campaign ads featuring Obama. In it, he said, Virginia's elections are among the most important in the country this year. The former president went on to criticize Republicans, saying they're attacking abortion access and women's rights, raising costs for working families, and favoring billionaires. Spanberger's opponent, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears' office, reacted, saying the ads show that Spanberger is desperate and is leaning on liberal elites. The Virginia race is only one of 2 gubernatorial elections this November. It's being viewed as a bellwether for next year's midterms. A new report reveals that more than 500 U.S. universities may be helping China's military advance its technology. We take a closer look at what this means for U.S. national security after this break.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where did the time go? Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. Or how did I get here?
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
My mom and dad were traditional Asian parents.
Now my father would go to work before I woke up in the morning, and then he would come home too tired to play with me. I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. So I teased him the other day and I said, how come you never say that to me? And he said, you're too old now. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the material things, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious minute or moment.
Say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
A new report reveals that more than 500 U.S. universities have cooperated with researchers linked to the Chinese military in recent years. Experts warn those partnerships may be helping Beijing advance its defense technology. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has the report.
The study from private intelligence firm Strider Technologies found nearly 2,500 joint publications in 2024 alone. They covered fields like physics, engineering, and computer science. That's down from 2019, when more than 3,500 joint research papers were published. But it's still a major concern for national security officials. Despite government efforts to limit these partnerships, Strider says the practice remains widespread. American institutions have been fueling China's military advancements in areas like anti-jamming communications and hypersonic weapons. A House committee has been sounding the alarm too. It's urging tighter visa screening for Chinese scholars and stronger protections for U.S. research. The DHS warns that the CCP continues to target American universities and companies to steal sensitive technology. The Justice Department says roughly 80% of economic espionage cases in the U.S. have links to China. In response, Congress is moving to limit U.S.-China research. It's introducing a new bill that would block federal funding for projects tied to China's military and putting tougher rules in place for university partnerships.
And for more exclusive China news and in-depth analysis, tune in to China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on NTD. The FCC yesterday said it's moving to stop a Hong Kong telecom carrier, HKT International, from operating in the United States over national security concerns. The FCC directed HKT to explain why the FCC should not launch revocation proceedings, citing its affiliation with China Unicom Americas. If finalized, it would prevent the company from providing international and domestic telecom services to and within the United States. Washington has taken a series of actions against China's telecom and tech industries in recent years. FCC Chair Brendan Carr said yesterday that the commission is working to ensure that Chinese-controlled entities that pose national security threats cannot connect to our telecom networks. British Prime Minister Starmer published a senior official's evidence relating to a now collapsed Chinese spying case. He's seeking to show that the case did not collapse because of government manipulation. The documents detail malign Chinese activity but did not clearly state that China poses a threat to UK national security. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more for us.
Witness statements submitted by the British government in a now collapsed spy case reveal details of the Chinese Communist Party's espionage operations in the UK. The statements were sent to the Crown Prosecution Service, or CPS, before it decided it would not prosecute Christopher Cash and Christopher Berry. The two men were accused of passing sensitive information from Parliament to the CCP. Both pleaded not guilty and have continued to deny all accusations. Deputy National Security Advisor Matt Collins wrote in a December 2023 statement that the Chinese intelligence services were conducting large-scale spy operations against the UK, including in the government, in industry and in research sectors. In a February 2024 document, Collins said China and the UK benefit from trade and investment, but added China also presents the biggest state-based threat to the UK's economic security. And in an August 2025 statement, he said Chinese intelligence services are highly capable and conduct large-scale spy operations to advance the interests of the Chinese state and harm the interests and security of the UK. Collins, however, emphasized that the UK government is committed to pursuing a positive relationship with China, quoting the Labour Party's stance that the UK will cooperate with, compete with, and challenge China. The CPS decided the government's evidence did not prove that China was a national security threat to the UK at the time of the alleged offences. Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch said the government should have provided evidence to the CPS that showed that China was a threat.
There are examples that they could have pointed to about China hacking into Whitehall government systems. They did not provide any of that. And they were informed that the spy case was collapsing. They could have intervened to stop it. They didn't because they're too weak to stand up to China.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has insisted that his government is not responsible for the trial collapsing and has instead sought to blame the previous Conservative government. MI5 Director General Ken McCallum said he's frustrated by the collapse of the spy trial and said that Chinese state actors present a daily threat to the UK's national security.
Every day in life. I've described that today, I've described it in previous years. That will continue to be true. It's a whole series of different vectors of national security activity that we deal with.
He said security services had carried out an operation against a threat from China in the past week. He also highlighted attempts by China to carry out cyber espionage, clandestine technology transfers, efforts to interfere covertly in UK public life, and the harassment and intimidation of opponents, including pro-democracy activists. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
A controversial proposal to monitor all private online messages across Europe was rejected this week. The bill, known as Chat Control, would have required governments to scan all digital communications of EU citizens to fight child exploitation. The proposal will be re-examined later this year. Meanwhile, critics warn it poses a serious threat to privacy and free speech. NTD international correspondent David Vivez reports from Paris.
On Tuesday, October 14, the European Council examined a bill that would require each member state to deploy tools capable of searching EU citizens' private communications. App and device makers would be forced to embed systems that scan in real time all messages, photos and videos, without distinction between suspects and ordinary citizens. The chat control bill aims to fight global child pornography networks. However, it was rejected due to disagreements within the bloc. Member of the European Parliament, Tom van den Driessen, said that while he understands the bill's purpose, it remains unbalanced.
Only 2 weeks ago, a Flemish kindergarten teacher was arrested after having produced child pornography for over 15 years and having abused the children that were trusted to him in his kindergarten. And how did we find out? Because the FBI got his hand on images, and they have, by the use of AI, identified the location and the person which was producing it. So we must understand that this kind of horrible child abuse is on a global scale, and they are using modern and technological tools to do this.
But he adds that the bill's general targeting of users misses the mark.
I think this is the balance between freedom and privacy and safety is out of balance within this proposition, because it's a preventive control system on literally every private message of everybody. And why should we have the EU access our private conversations on a total scale, while we only want to look for these criminals and these pedophiles, for example? So I think this is a proposition which is out of balance, and it sets the door wide open for the EU totalitarian system to even strengthen itself.
Telegram CEO Pavel Durov posted on X that Telegram had warned users about the proposal, underlying that the French government initiated the bill. Durov wrote, "Such measures are supposed to fight crime, but their real target is regular people. It wouldn't stop criminals, they could just use VPNs or special websites to hide." Van der Driessen says the EU should take inspiration from how the US administration is moving to protect free speech.
And this is what J.D. Vance has said in his Munich conference speech, that the European Union and European countries have lost track of the democratic values which are shared with the United States. So I just make the connection to what we have now, the democracy shield by the European Union, where they will have an agency, a Ministry of Truth, declaring what is the truth in order to shield democracy. It's quite a 1984 style language they are using. Freedom is slavery. Now, so I think we can be inspired what happens now in the United States, but having said that, I do think that big tech companies should follow the national rules.
The chat control bill will be re-examined in December 2025. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
EU leaders have been calling for the building of a drone wall after some 20 Russian drones entered Polish airspace last month, followed by drone incidents over airports in Denmark and Germany. But the proposal remains in flux, according to officials and diplomats who spoke to Reuters about the project. Let's take a look at what a drone wall entails and what some key hurdles are.
After Poland shot down Russian drones that entered its airspace in September, several other drone-related incidents across Europe have left EU leaders increasingly anxious about airspace protection. They're urgently calling for a defense system, throwing out terms like a drone wall.
Propose immediate actions to create the drone wall.
But the proposal remains in flux, diplomats and officials have told Reuters. So what is a drone wall and how would it work? Such a defense system would detect incoming drones and be able to counter them.
It's about integrating all of your air defense assets to work together in tandem, from ground radars, fighter jets, cheap interceptor drones, missiles, the whole range of capabilities and electronic warfare to jam these drones, all working in tandem around the clock.
Tolas says cost effectiveness is key. For the Poland incursion on September the 9th, NATO deployed F-35 and F-16 fighter jets, helicopters and a Patriot air defense system collectively worth billions of dollars. The Russian drones they were responding to cost a tiny fraction of that price.
You just can't be firing hundreds or even thousands of $1 million or $500,000 missiles at these drones that generally cost about $50,000 each. That would be the Russians imposing a huge cost on us.
Tolas says technologies such as cheap interceptor drones and lasers exist already, but have yet to be scaled up. The EU initiative is a test of its ambitions to play a greater role in defence, which traditionally falls to national governments and NATO. And it's a challenge to Europe's ability to take more responsibility for its own security, as demanded by Donald Trump and many US presidents before him. The proposal is also caught up in a power struggle over who should control.
And President Trump is having a press conference right now. Let's tune in.
But it went very well. We're here today to announce a historic victory for American women, mothers, and families. With the actions I will outline this afternoon will dramatically slash the cost of IVF and the treatment and many of the most common fertility drugs for countless millions of Americans. Prices are going way down, way down. I want to thank Libby Horn, who is the Senior Vice President of Fertility of EMD Serrano. So I want to thank you. Let's see here. That's what I thought. I thought it was you. Thank you, Libby, very much. And let me also thank the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr., whose wife destroyed the people on The View yesterday. I have to say that. I'm not going to ever get into an argument with her. And you've decided, you learned that a long time ago, right? She did a great job, actually. Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick. Thank you, Howard. Secretary of Labor, Lori Chavez de Rima. Thanks, Lori. Howard, thanks. CMS Administrator, Dr. Mehmet Oz, who's a fantastic guy, and he's done really well. FDA Commissioner Marty McCary. Thank you, Marty. Senator Katie Britt, who got me started with this whole thing when she called up to say there was a bad ruling by a judge, right? We got to do something, sir, and we did it very quickly. Probably in 24 hours it was done. Congressman Richard Hudson, a great guy, and his wife Renee. Richard, hi, Richard. And Advocate Samantha Bush, who's a very respected person. For years, American couples struggling with infertility have faced crushing costs in their quest to start a family, and IVF is among the most expensive treatments of all. A single round of IVF in the United States can cost up to $25,000, can actually go a lot higher than that, and many couples require multiple rounds for a successful pregnancy. A major reason for these high prices is the excessive cost of the drugs involved. The number one fertility drug used in IVF is currently 700% more expensive in the United States than the rest of the world. And you know, we're ending all of that. It's called favored nations, and we're ending it, and we're ending it pretty fast. Nobody thought we'd be able to do it, and we've done it. Drugs are going to come down. Drug prices are coming down. 400%, 200%, 600%, numbers that nobody's ever seen before. Great for Medicare, Medicaid, even Social Security. Great for everything, I think, Dr. Oz. So that's something that's, to me, it's very exciting. I'm bugging him and Bobby all the time. How are we doing with that? And we're doing really good, Bobby. Right? It's really going good. Other countries are agreeing to it, because if they don't, we put tariffs on them. And then they agree. So it's amazing. It's amazing how that worked out. But as an example, in London, you'd buy a certain drug for $130, and even less than that, I guess, $88 as of a count a month ago. And in New York, you pay $1,300 for the same thing. So now we're going to be paying, instead of $1,300, you'll be paying about $150. And they'll be paying $150 too. We're going to pay the same thing. Favored nations. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And we've been ripped off by the whole world for a long period of time. One of the most popular fertility drug regimens costs over $5,000 per cycle, as an example. Wow. Largely as a result of these unsustainable prices, 70% of the employers do not offer insurance that covers IVF. Therefore, most couples with fertility challenges are paying these costs entirely out of their own pockets, which is not really possible to do. Oh, look who we have. Look at that. The great Maria Bartiromo. I didn't know. Did you get put into the regular pool pack? That's very good. Yeah, that's good. Nice to see you. I'm doing an interview with her in a little while. In the Trump administration, we want to make it easier for all couples to have babies, raise children, and start the families they've always dreamed about. That's why today I'm pleased to announce that after extensive negotiations, EMD Serono, the largest fertility drug manufacturer in the world, has agreed to provide massive discounts to all fertility drugs they sell in the United States, including the most popular drug of all, the IVF drug Gonal-F. So it's Gonal-F. Is that a proper pronunciation? Close enough, right? Gonal-F. As part of this agreement, EMD Serono will list their fertility drugs online at trumprx.gov at very, very heavily reduced prices that you won't even believe. And ultimately, that's because of the favored nations. In addition, the FDA will be working with the company to expedite review and approval of another common fertility IVF drug, and currently it's selling in Europe. It's Pergoveris. And that's a sound nice name. Pergoveris. Why can't you name them nice, simple names? Nice, easy names. Doesn't matter. If it works, that's all we care about, right? Upon approval, this drug would directly compete against a much more expensive option that currently has a monopoly in the American market, and this will bring down costs very significantly. And the other one's going to have to come down also. Finally, EMD Serono has agreed that all future drugs and everything that it develops and sells in the United States will be offset at most favored nation prices. I've been after this for a long time, and we started the process in the last administration, and then we had a little thing called COVID that came up. We had to focus on that, did a good job on that too. And they'll bring a significant portion of their drug manufacturing back to the United States. So they're going to bring it largely back into the United States, and that's for a lot of reasons, but primarily because of the election result, November 5th, and maybe most importantly because of the tariffs, because if they do it here, there are no tariffs. So we're going to be very close, I think by the end of this year, we're going to be very close to $20 trillion in investment. As an example, the Biden administration had less than $1 trillion, substantially less than $1 trillion for 4 years, Maria. Can you imagine? 4 years, less than one. We're going to break $20 trillion of investment, and we're already over $17 trillion, and that's in 8 months. Can you believe that? And he was at less than $1 trillion. And in addition to that, he had open borders, allowing millions of people to pour in. What an administration that was. Worst president in history, by far. As a result of these actions, the per-cycle cost of drugs used in IVF will fall by an estimated 73% for American consumers, and the numbers are going to actually be very substantially higher as time goes by when it really kicks in. For most of, I mean, think of those numbers. You know, I told the story last time because we were with Pfizer, and Pfizer's doing something very similar. But I told them that my first term, I was so proud of myself because I was the first president in 28 years where drug prices went down for the year. And you know what they went down? 1/8 of 1%. But I was so 1/8 of 1%. Now I'm getting them down, Maria, 500, 600, 800%. In some cases, even more than that. It's hard to believe. But I was proud. I said, oh, wow, I'm the first one. 1/8 of 1%. And I was proud of that. Now I realize, and I called a news conference. Some of you were at that news conference, actually. And I said, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations. We've gone down by 1/8 of 1%. And now we're going down 500, 600, 700, 800%, Richard. So it's really something. For most administrations and all of the people involved in this kind of thing, this action would be a crowning achievement of their agenda for fertility health. But for us, it's really just the beginning. It's just a start. It's one of many things we're doing. Today, we're also taking historic steps to vastly expand access to insurance coverage for fertility care, including IVF, something that, as you know, was not covered. Effective immediately, for the first time ever, we will make it legal for companies to offer supplemental insurance plans specifically for fertility. That's never been done before. We're signing it in today with what we sign. Americans will be able to opt in to specialized coverage, just as they get vision and dental insurance. They're going to get fertility insurance for the first time. So I don't know. I don't know how well these things are covered. I see the Democrats like to take credit for all of the things we do. We do the things and they take the credit. But I figure if you do enough of these, eventually people are going to figure it out. The Democrats have done nothing. This will make all fertility care, including IVF, far more affordable and accessible. And by providing coverage at every step of the way, it will reduce the number of people who ultimately need to resort to IVF because couples will be able to identify and address problems early. The result will be healthier pregnancies, healthier babies, and many more beautiful American children. It's a big factor. It's a big deal. I'm asking all employers to make these new fertility benefit options available to their employees immediately. The initiatives I've just announced are the boldest and most significant actions ever taken by any president to bring the miracle of life into more American homes. And I will say Katie was great. As you know, she's a great senator from Alabama. She's the first one that told me about this. I had not known too much about it, and we worked very rapidly together, didn't we, though? We had everything passed, and Alabama then took care of it and passed it. Within a week, everything was done. Really, it was something. So I want to thank Katie, Brett. There's no deeper happiness and joy of raising children, and now millions of Americans struggling with infertility will have a new chance to share the greatest experience of them all. So I'd like to thank all of the people that are here, and I think we'll start with Dr. Oz and Ms. Horn. We'll go through the list and we'll listen. And yesterday I did this, and I stood for about an hour and a half as people spoke. And I said, this time I'm sitting right there, and I'm going to watch you. I stood for an hour and a half like this. I said, you got to be kidding. Here we go. It was one after another, and it was wonderful listening to them. But I said, if I have to do this every day, Bobby, should I stand or sit? Thank you, Bobby. Please, Dr. Oz.
Mr. President, I'm going to jump in here real quick. I want to start by thanking President Trump. Sir, from the very first phone call we ever had, your support was strong. It was steadfast. It was unwavering. And because of you, millions of Americans are going to have a greater opportunity to bring the greatest gift, in my opinion, life into this world. Your support, your administration's support, it's a game changer. All of us here today are aligned. This is a celebration of life. It's a celebration of parents. It's a celebration of families. And it's a celebration for those people who want to one day be parents themselves. I think every parent can attest, and I certainly do myself, that the greatest gift that God has ever given me is the ability to be a mom. We want more people to have that opportunity. We want to make that easier and more affordable. IVF is what makes the difference for so many families that are facing infertility. So you've seen the numbers. It's either 1 in 8 couples, or some people say as much as 1 in 6, are actually experiencing issues with fertility. It's 9% of males and at least 11% of females that are facing these challenges as they work to build their family. The recommendations today that President Trump has set forth are going to expand IVF coverage to nearly 1 million more families, and they're going to drive down cost significantly. Mr. President, this is the most pro-IVF thing that any president in the history of the United States of America has done. And Mr. President, it's your leadership. You are the reason why the Republican Party is now the party of parents. We are the party of families. This is why when Senator Cruz and I worked last year, we got every single Republican senator to sign on and say that they supported nationwide access to IVF. And just for the record, IVF is legal and accessible in all 50 states. And President Trump taking this action today to lower cost, to bring these issues to the forefront, and to enact solutions for people working to start their families, I want you to know it's significant and there's more to come. But this isn't the only thing that you've done to prove that we're the party of parents and we're the party of families. If you look at the working family tax cut, guys, he made sure that hard-working parents were front and center in that legislation. You know, whether it was child tax credits being expanded and made permanent, whether it was Trump accounts that are going to change the game for so many parents, or whether it was childcare. So for decades, we have heard Democrats talk about childcare. President Trump actually took action on the affordability and accessibility of childcare. We know that 1 in 4 families say that they hesitate to have more children because of the cost and because of childcare cost. For the first time, this man actually took steps to change the dynamics for hardworking parents. So of the 3 tax credits that he reformed and the working families tax cuts, 2 of them had not been touched in 2 decades, and 1 of them had not been touched since 1986. So President Reagan was in office the last time anybody did anything about it. But you changed the game on that, and I was proud to lead that effort in the Senate. And so on behalf of moms and dads, on behalf of grandparents and sisters and aunts and uncles and brothers and people who are looking to expand their family, we say thank you. Thank you for all you do to support families in this country and make a healthier environment and an easier one for us to grow the very most important thing. God bless.
So let's set the stage. Put it in perspective, 2 weeks ago, as President Trump alluded, a leading U.S. drug manufacturer came into this room and agreed to do something none of us thought was possible. A most favored nation agreement with numbers, again, inconceivable. Last week, a company from Europe, a global leader in the pharmaceutical sector, came to this office, made the same kind of commitment for most favored nation pricing, again, because the president insisted on it and was persistent, and he alluded to the fact that he was calling Secretary Kennedy and me quite a bit. He definitely was, with great insights into the process and would not hold back. But I think what you're seeing today is something even larger. It's larger because we're now showing that MFN is a tool that can get other initiatives going as well. We are revealing perhaps the most important MFN opportunity at all because it's about procreation. It's about babies. It turns out that MFN is a tool for a lot of things, and it goes without saying that you get the drug pricing down, but lots of other business necessities become possible when that occurs. So Secretary Kennedy and I, who's a wonderful leader, talk frequently about family. I think the reason he's a great leader, and the president as well, is because they have large families and they take pride in the joy that it gives us. But many families, as Senator Britt alluded, do not have the ability to have children. But it turns out that it's about 1 in 3 families, a much higher number, that don't have the number of babies they desire. They're under-babied. So this president committed to address that during the campaign, and he is delivering on that today in a way I don't think anyone thought was possible. We are opening the door with MFN pricing and tariffs that support it, Secretary Lutnick, with a new approach to make reproductive medicine more affordable for Americans. Now, I know what you're all thinking, and you're probably right. There are going to be a lot of Trump babies. I think that's probably a good thing. But it turns out the fundamental creative force in society is about making babies. It's about creating. And this country, the one that President Trump is leading so beautifully, has been a country of abundance, not scarcity. To have abundance, you have to address the fact that we had 3.6 million babies last year, which is beautiful. 3.6 million miracles. That's 500,000 less babies than we would ideally have had, even to replace our current population. Building on the success of the last 2 weeks, our team, led by the head of Medicare, Chris Klump, who's standing over there, and Ina Hernandez, have negotiated a spectacular MFN deal to reduce the cost of IVF drug prices by $2,200 a cycle. That's nearly half of the price that it had been. The most prescribed drug in this category in America, made by MD Serrano, is described over here. And you'll notice, President Trump, these are discounted from $242 to $10. I don't know what the math is on that. We can't even calculate it. It's a lot. It's too high to calculate without a more studied approach. But I give it up there because that number of $10 will apply for every American who earns less than $115,000 a year. That's 70% of the American people. The remaining folks who are able to make more will have to pay a tiny bit more, but it's still most favored nation pricing, no different from what the Europeans are willing to pay. Now, to make this deal happen, Chris and Inma had to do something special. They have to actually not just get the drug price down, but get the middlemen to let it go as well. And Mr. President, we've met with the middlemen in the past. They're now joining the MFN movement. I want to thank Express Scripts Freedom Pharmacy and then CVS's Specialty Pharmacy because they were willing to stand up and do the right thing for the American people by answering the president's call and slashing their prices. Now, this announcement also encompasses a remarkable move from Marty Makary. And Marty Makary is, of course, the leader of the FDA, but he has ongoing efforts to accelerate their approval of innovative medicines that will further reduce the price and make this whole process more seamless for the American people. Now, you're about to hear about a spectacular new program that's been alluded to. But one of the architects of that program, Heidi Overton, Deputy Director of the White House Domestic Policy Council, is going to take us through the exciting details of what this is going to offer for the American people, especially those who are in the workforce. But first, we think you should hear from Libby Horn. Libby is EMD Serrano's head of fertility. She brings both professional expertise and a personal connection to this work. She has 3 beautiful daughters, and she has personally benefited from reproductive medicine that has shaped her family. And her company made today's spectacular MFN pricing possible. Libby.
Thank you, Dr. Oz. Thank you, Mr. President. Today, we gather on this national stage to celebrate a historic step forward in expanding access to fertility treatments for those who need it most. Mr. President, thanks to your leadership and the tireless efforts of your team, this is a momentous day for Americans who struggle but remain hopeful to build their families. Infertility is on the rise in our country. 1 in 8 couples face infertility. This isn't just a number, it's real lives, dreams, and aspirations of hardworking Americans. The teacher who goes to school each day, surrounded by children, but aching for children of her own. The firefighter who puts his life on the line, but can't create the life he wants at home. The consequences of these challenges can take significant tolls. Some of you watching today have given up or are frustrated because access to IVF treatments has been out of reach. That's why expanding access to IVF has been an issue of great importance to the president. He made this clear in his executive order declaring the administration's goal of supporting American families by enabling access and eliminating barriers to IVF. Today, EMD Serrano is proud to help President Trump deliver on his promise to you. Thanks to the president's leadership, EMD Serrano has worked alongside distributors and other partners to help more families have access to services and innovations that are consistent with other countries. Through our partnership with the administration, we are proud to announce that Americans will have access to our leading IVF therapies for an 84% discount off list prices. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Thank you for making this possible.
Fantastic.
For more than 40 years, EMD Serrano has been a global leader in fertility. Our science was instrumental in the birth of the first IVF baby in the US, and we've helped to bring more than 6 million babies into the world since then. Our purpose is to help create, improve, and prolong life. That means discovering more medicines and bringing them to patients faster. FDA Commissioner Makary has made it a priority to ensure that Americans have access to the world's most innovative treatments as quickly as possible. To that end, EMD Serrano is filing a new IVF therapy called Pergoveris for review under the FDA Commissioner's National Priority Voucher Program. If approved, Pergoveris would combine 2 key reproductive hormones in synergy designed to mimic reproductive physiology. This therapeutic option could mean fewer injections, fewer copays, and lower self-pay costs, all of which make a real difference in the IVF patient experience. In closing, on behalf of EMD Serono, I want to send my heartfelt thanks to President Trump and the entire administration for their leadership and vision in this critical area of healthcare. Together, we will make a difference in the lives of countless families across this nation and uphold our long-standing legacy of creating life. Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you for your bold leadership that's allowed our teams to go far beyond what anyone thought was possible. On behalf of the Domestic Policy Council and Vince Haley here, we would like to also thank all the agency partners and the stakeholders that we worked with to get to the solution today that will make a real impact for families. Specifically, today's historic actions, 4 in total that you see, are made possible by coordination of all of the White House team and 7 agencies, many of who are represented here, and their teams that have worked tirelessly. As you described, Mr. President, the current system isn't working. 7 in 10 Americans don't have coverage to IVF. They face high costs and uncertain outcomes. And there's intense demand for fertility benefits. 65% of Americans say that they would leave their current job just because of fertility benefits. So you asked us to lower costs and to fix the broken incentives in healthcare. In addition to lowering the cost of drugs by 73% or $2,200 per cycle, which if you missed it, most people require 2 or 3 cycles. So that's significant savings for families. I'm also going to briefly outline the new solution for coverage. This is a new fertility benefit option that employers can immediately offer to their employees starting today. This afternoon, the Departments of Labor, Health and Human Services, and Treasury will be releasing guidance that, for the first time, creates a legal pathway for employers to offer fertility benefit packages to people that need them, similar to how dental, vision, and life insurance are currently offered. This will be followed up by a regulation. These benefits can address the continuum of fertility needs, from the root causes of IVF, which Secretary Kennedy is working on very hard at HHS, to it'll be a coordinated package that does not exist in traditional health insurance today. It'll make it easier for employers, including small and mid-sized employers, to compete for talented employees. Currently, many small businesses cannot afford to offer fertility benefits at all. This is making it possible for them to offer benefits the same way that large companies like Amazon and others offer benefits. This is a pro-family benefit expansion that will transform clinical outcomes by addressing fragmented coverage and care. I'm a physician by training, and it's very important that we have high-quality care. Fertility benefit companies are poised to offer packages that have reported so far roughly 25% higher live birth rates for those that seek care compared to those that don't have such benefits. They also report fewer cycles to achieve pregnancy, improved natural pregnancy rates through better care before you need IVF, and reduced chance of miscarriages, a 21% reduction in miscarriage rate. Leading physicians in the field have also relayed that these types of benefits significantly improve the patient and doctor experience, allowing both to focus on care rather than navigating the bureaucracy. These impacts are very personal. Here with us today are my good friends, Congressman Richard Hudson of North Carolina and his wife, Renee Hudson. Both have worked in public service for years, including Renee for all 4 years of your past administration, Mr. President, and they struggled with infertility. Today, they have a beautiful son who's their pride and joy. He's an amazing boy. But they also suffered multiple losses throughout their fertility journey, something that is very common. Unfortunately, too many people go through the hard, arduous process of IVF and still result in a miscarriage. So today, your option is not only saving money, it's going to improve the quality of care significantly. This new benefit option simultaneously represents the greatest opportunity to expand coverage of IVF that the federal government has ever taken, while also improving the care delivered. Additionally, and very importantly, it gives employers maximum flexibility to design benefits that are consistent with their values. Put simply, this new fertility benefit option means lower costs and more healthy babies. So today, this announcement, we are realigning the industry towards the simple metric of more healthy babies at lower costs. I would now like to introduce Samantha Bush, the wife of NASCAR driver Kyle Busch, who's been a leading advocate for IVF access and affordability after your own infertility journey. Thank you, Mr. President.
Hello, everyone. My husband, Kyle, and I battled infertility for over a decade before being blessed with our two beautiful children, Brexton, who's 10, and our daughter, Lennox, who's now 3. But our journey was long and painful. We faced 6 rounds of IVF, multiple miscarriages, multiple failed cycles, and countless moments of heartbreak. We faced the roller coaster of hope and devastation that so many families know all too well. Through it all, we held on to faith, each other, and the belief that somehow, someday, God would turn our pain into purpose. We also saw firsthand the staggering financial burden that comes with infertility treatments. Sitting in the waiting room of our fertility clinic, we overheard another couple quietly say that money was the only thing standing in their way of having their family. In that moment, Kyle and I looked at each other, and we knew God was planting a seed in our hearts, a calling to take action. In 2015, that calling became the Bundle of Joy Fund, a nonprofit foundation dedicated to providing financial assistance to couples struggling with infertility. What began as a small act of faith has now grown into something far greater than we could have ever imagined. To date, we've granted over $2 million directly to individuals, helping them pay for their IVF treatments, and we've celebrated the birth of 108 beautiful babies through our fund. Thank you. Each baby is a living, breathing testament to hope, community, and God's grace. For every tear we cried, for every shot we gave, every doctor's appointment that ended in disappointment, Kyle and I knew there had to be a greater reason. This was God's plan for us, to use our journey to advocate, empower, and be the voice to those battling in silence. Over the past 12 years, we've worked hard to raise awareness, erase stigma, and bring hope to the 1 in 6 couples that will face infertility. Infertility can be incredibly isolating. It can leave you questioning your faith, your body, and your future. But it can also reveal a strength that you never knew you had inside of you. It can deepen love, it can bring couples closer together, and it unites people through a shared struggle. Our goal has always been to show others that they are not alone, that there is a powerful community of infertility warriors behind them. Today, seeing President Trump acknowledge infertility on a national stage is profoundly moving. It's no longer a whispered conversation behind closed doors. It is a recognized, validated struggle that so many families have to endure. His leadership reminds us that those in positions of power can make real and lasting changes for generations to come. Their willingness to bring this issue forward shows that they not only hear our community, but they truly care about us. Thank you, Mr. President, and to your family, for shining a light on infertility and for standing by couples like Kyle and I, for standing by couples who only want to hear the words mommy and daddy, who want to watch our children open their Christmas presents on Christmas morning, who want to see the world anew through the joy in their kids' eyes. Your acknowledgement honors the power of family, faith, and love, the very values that make America the greatest country in the world. It's proof that when promises are made and promises are kept, lives are changed forever. Thank you, Mr. President.
Anybody else? Howard, would you like to say a couple? I was hoping you would say that. Bobby, come on up for a second. What a job you're doing. Yeah, say a few words, Bobby.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your vision, your commitment to our country. When my uncle was president, the fertility rate in this country was 3.5%. Today, it is 1.6%. The replacement rate, in other words, the amount of fertility that you need in order to keep your population even, is 2.1%. We are below replacement right now. That is a national security threat to our country. And we know why this is happening. And President Trump is addressing the root causes through his MAHA agenda of reducing endocrine disruptors, the exposure to chemicals that decrease fertility. Today, the average teenager in this country has 50% of the sperm count, 50% of the testosterone as a 65-year-old man. Our girls are hitting puberty 6 years earlier. And that's bad, but also our parents aren't having children. Parents who want to have children do not have access. I have 7 children. I feel that God has blessed me with that, and I can't imagine how different my life would be if I did not have that blessing. I want to point out also that this morning Harvard University released a study that showed that the obesity rates have now climbed over 70%. And this, again, is for the same reason we're flooding our kids. We're poisoning mass poisoning a generation of kids with chemicals. President Trump has instructed us to stop these problems at the root cause. But he's also recognized that there are people who are injured, people who are not living their life to the fullest, and he's addressing that. Last week, we made GLP drugs available at Most Favored Nation. And this week, it's IVF. Oh, I want to thank you so much for that, Mr. President. I saw on an airplane the other day, you said that you didn't believe that you were going to get to heaven. You're doing God's work here. You've made peace in the Middle East, which is beyond anybody's imagination. And now you're giving millions of Americans a chance to have babies. And you're doing this while the government is locked down by the Democrats. But this administration has not stopped working for the American people. And that's because of your energy, your commitment, your vision. And I want to thank you for allowing me to be part of it.
And he's doing a great job. And by the way, Kyle is fantastic. So he's got a lot of courage. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't care. Howard, you and I would not be good at that. We'd go about 30 miles an hour, but we'd be safe. Anyway, so thank you very much. Any questions, please?
Mr. President, you posted earlier today.
Yeah, please.
Mr. President, this is a major campaign promise that you made. It was a big hot topic towards the end of the election. You're delivering on that again. I actually had a question for Secretary Kennedy or Dr. Heidi. Dr. Heidi, you said something that I thought was really important. You talked about how this coverage option, this benefit option, gives companies the maximum flexibility to design benefits consistent to their values. I was wondering if either you or the President could expand on that and talk about why that's an important thing to understand about this program.
Thank you. It's a great question. We think that employers are best situated to know what them and their employees want to contribute to in relation to their benefits. So employers are going to be able to decide how to cover the root causes of infertility, things like obesity, metabolic health, and other things that are impacting infertility. And also, if they want to encourage their employees to see certain types of doctors, and they can work with providers that are identifying the highest quality fertility providers. And so it puts them in the driver's seat. And our view is that we want employers to be the ones that can make those decisions, not the government. Thank you.
All right. That's a good answer.
Yeah, it was.
That's a very good answer. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, previously you did not seem to be bothered regarding Hamas cracking down on what you called gangs. Actually, a couple of gangs. And today you issued a threat against Hamas on Truth Social. What has changed?
And what was said? Go ahead.
You said if they continue keep killing innocents in Gaza, that if that continues, the United States will go after them.
I issued a strong statement. That's right.
They used to be gangs, and now you're saying innocents. What made you think they're innocents now?
Well, I'm looking at what's happening, and that wasn't the deal that was made, and we'll see what happens. It's calmed down. It's a tough neighborhood. We know that. We have a commitment from them, and I assume they're going to honor that commitment. I hope they do. And I understand they brought back some additional bodies today. It's a rough deal when you think of it, right? Very rough. We have our hostages back completely. We were very lucky with that. But it's a tough situation. They brought back bodies today, as you probably know. But they also said they're going to behave. We're going to find out if they behave. If they behave, good. If they don't behave, we'll take care of it. Yeah, please.
Following up on that, when you
I didn't
said...
say you. Your CNN, fake news. Go ahead.
You said in your post that if they kept killing people in Gaza, we would have no choice but to go in and kill them. So do you mean U.S. forces would go in and take out Hamas?
No, I didn't say who would go in, but somebody will go in. It's not going to be us. We won't have to. There are people very close, very nearby that will go in. They'll do the trick very easily, but under our auspices.
Could I follow up? You also posted about your call with President Putin today, and you spoke about the meeting in Hungary with him. Do you have a timeline or a date set for when?
Yeah, I would say within 2 weeks or so. Pretty quick. Marco Rubio is going to be meeting with his counterpart, as you know, Lavrov, and they'll be meeting pretty soon. They're going to set up a time and a place very shortly. Maybe it's already set up. They've already spoken. And I thought it was a very good phone call. I thought very productive. But I'll be meeting with President Putin, and we'll make a determination. Tomorrow I'm meeting with President Zelensky, and I'll be telling him about the call. I mean, we have a problem. They don't get along too well, those two, and it's sometimes tough to have meetings, so we may do something where we're separate but equal. We'll meet and talk parties, but this is a terrible relationship the two of them have, and it's one of those things. I've seen things that nobody would believe, but this is one of them. So we're going to be meeting in Hungary. Viktor Orban is going to be hosting, and it's really something that's time. Last week, over 7,000 people were killed. That's ridiculous. And you know, it doesn't affect our country. We're not losing people. We're not losing Bobby. We're not losing Americans, but they're losing Russians, Ukrainians, mostly soldiers, for the most part, soldiers. And we think we're going to get it. We hope we're going to get it stopped. I thought this would be, because of my relationship with President Putin, I thought this would be very quick. And it's turned out to be, who would think I did Middle East before I did this? We did a total of 8 now, 7 and now 8. And we're going to make this number 9.
So you said you posted that there was great progress. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Was it a shift in Putin's tone? Was it something new he told you? Did he give you any message to give?
You're talking about the whole
President Zelensky tomorrow.
It just seems to me that, look, it's only a field. That's all I've done in my whole life. I've made deals. I know about deals. I do it well. I don't think any president's ever ended a war, frankly. One war, I did 8 of them, Maria, right? And but I don't know, did Bush ever end? Do you think Biden ended a war? Biden started wars because he was stupid. But do you think Biden ended any wars? No, I don't know of anybody that ended wars. I ended 8 of them. And it's going to be 9. I think we're going to have this one done hopefully soon. But I'll be meeting him probably over the next 2 weeks. First, Marco is going to be meeting. And the vice president, as you know, is very much involved. The whole team is involved. Steve Witkoff will be involved. Yeah, please.
What did you tell him about the Tomahawks? Did you discuss the Tomahawk missiles? Did you discuss?
Well, we talked about it a little bit. Didn't say much, but I do say to you, we need Tomahawks for the United States of America, too. We have a lot of them, but we need them. I mean, we can't deplete for our country. So, they're very vital. They're very powerful. They're very accurate. They're very good, but we need them, too. So I don't know what we can do about that.
Why do you think a second meeting with Putin? Why do you think a second meeting with Putin now will yield different results?
Well, I think Alaska actually set a stage, and that wasn't very long ago, but it set a stage. You have to understand, I came into this situation. I didn't start this war. This is a Biden deal, and I came into it, and it was a mess. It could have led to World War III. In my opinion, this could have led to World War III. That won't happen, but it could have. So I came in, this war was raging. When I left, this wasn't even a thought. for 4 years. Nobody talked about. I spoke to President Putin about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye, but there was never going to be doing anything like this. And this all went because of some really bad decisions that were made. And look what you have. You have millions of people dead. You have just a horrible, horrible situation. I'm doing it to save souls. That's all I'm doing it for. I'm not doing it for us. We have an ocean between us. I'm doing it also to help Europe. They want to have it ended, but they're unable to do it. I'm able to do it. So I think we'll be successful. We'll save a lot of lives. It should have been done. Should have never started. This would have never happened if the election weren't rigged. This would have never happened. But it did happen, and I'll get it stopped. Okay.
What's your message to
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned a $1,300 drug at the top of this. Were you referring to the weight loss drugs?
Yeah, I was referring to Ozempic, or I heard the fat loss drug.
So those are going to be $150 out of pocket for
Well,
Americans.
they'll be much lower. They'll be much lower. Yeah, go ahead, please.
We have not negotiated those yet. We're going to be rolling these out over time. The GLP category of drugs, which includes Ozempic, have not been negotiated yet.
What's the timeline for that?
But it will. It'll come down, like everyone else.
Okay. Any timeline on those negotiations?
No, but I think those are going to come down pretty fast, and we do have, I guess, some alternatives.
The president will be happy with the result, and until he is, we're not going to close those negotiations. Thank you.
Except it'll happen.
Got it.
Mr. President, what's your message to
pro-life
pro-life
conservatives? Some pro-life conservatives have religious objections to IVF and are already critical of this policy. What's your message to them?
I don't know about the views of that. I'm just looking to do something because, pro-life, I think this is very pro-life. You can't get more pro-life than this. Please.
Mr. President, you've been talking about how this new benefit plan will also include root cause treatments for infertility. How will you make sure that those root cause treatments are equally accessible to IVF?
Well, I think we're going to be doing that. Would anybody like to talk about that subject? Please.
Process. I think it's the determination, again, Secretary of Labor, the determination, the Department of Labor is issuing their intent today to open up the rulemaking process, again, for more flexibility. Anytime that you have a president who's leading when you can offer more access to health care at a lower rate is a benefit to the American people and to the end user, and that's exactly what he's doing. And so you heard before that through the Q&A guidance that was issued today with the other agencies, that will give guidance to our employers and the employees about what the flexibility of that is. And then again, opening that rulemaking process for further determination of the access that can be had, offered in those benefits for all different types of healthcare access is the goal of the Department of Labor.
Good answer. Thank you. I like this better. I just said, they can do better than me. Yeah, please.
President, do you think
Good job, Lauren. You're doing a fantastic job. I shouldn't tell, I won't say it, that I will not say that she was recommended by the Teamsters. Can you believe it? And she's turned out to be a gem, an absolute gem. You're doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, John Bolton was just indicted.
Do you think we can see your deal-making skills applied to the government shutdown anytime soon?
Well, look, all we want to do is just extend. We don't want anything. We just want to extend, live with the deal that they had. They want to spend $1.5 trillion on illegal immigrants, and they want to destroy health care for everyone else. And it's crazy. It's crazy. People that are here illegally, they want to spend $1.5 trillion. So we're just not going to do it. No, we have to take care of our health care. Now, we're doing that today, and we're doing it with, favored nations, the most favored nations. Your costs are going to be dropping greatly. And I'm really happy that it's at the beginning of my administration. Because I did insulin and got it down to like $25, but it doesn't kick in. It didn't kick in for 2 years by statute, so it couldn't kick in. And I said, boy, I hope I win this election, because if I don't, somebody else is going to take credit for it, Bobby. And sure as can be, Biden said, he didn't even know what the hell was happening, and it was a hard thing for me to do. I got insulin way down. What was it before that? It was just massive. It was impossible to afford. And sure as can be, because it was statute, it couldn't have been earlier. I said, boy, this falls into the next administration. I better win. And all of a sudden, I watched this Biden taking credit for something that I did, and on other things, too. We had a lot of things kick in. So the nice part about this is at the beginning of our administration, so I think we're going to see the fruits of our labor. And I hope on our other situation that we've talked so much about, autism, I hope we're going to see some very good results based on the recommendations that we made. And, you know, we have time to watch those results now.
John Bolton was just indicted by a grand jury in Maryland. Do you have a reaction to that?
I didn't know that. You told me for the first time, but I think he's, you know, a bad person. I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but it's the way it goes.
The case against him?
That's the way it goes, right? That's the way it goes. Will I what?
Have you reviewed the case against him?
No, I haven't. But I just think he's a bad person. Okay, anybody else?
What's the timeline for the IVF drug through the National Commissioner Priority Review Voucher? Dr. McCary?
What do you think, Doctor?
So, first of all, the National Priority Voucher Program says we're going to proactively at the FDA look for amazing treatments like this IVF treatment. We're going to reach out to the companies, and if it's in line with the president's national priorities, we're going to put those drugs at the front of the line and get a decision out in weeks instead of a year. And so today we announced 9 drugs that are going to be recipients. These are products where the manufacturing is going to be in the United States, or it's meeting a large unmet public health need, like a diabetes drug we announced today, or it is a product where you're going to see an affordability phenomena because the prices are getting equalized in line with the president's most favored nation status goal.
Wow, that's great. Why didn't I have him speak? He was so could have saved a lot of time. Thanks, Ronnie. I'm not surprised. Yeah, please.
Yes, thank you, President. So Senate Majority Leader John Thune today said he'd like to proceed with the bill which would put sanctions on Russia. What's your thought on that?
Well, we're going to see. He doesn't know about the call yet. I'm going to speak to him later. And it was subject to what I wanted to do. And so we'll see what happens. This may be such a productive call that we're going to end up, we want to get peace. We want to stop the killing. 7,000 people a week. Can you believe it? We want to stop the killing. So I'm going to speak to him and the speaker, Mike Johnson. I'll speak to them a little bit later and I'll tell them about this. And we'll make the right determination. I'm not against anything. I'm just saying it may not be perfect timing. It could happen in a week or two, but it's at my option, as you know.
Right, but did President Putin try to dissuade you from selling Tomahawk missiles?
Well, of course. What do you think he's going to say? Please sell Tomahawks?
No, but did he give
Is he going to say, please sell those Tomahawks? I really appreciate it. I did actually say, would you mind if I gave a couple of thousand Tomahawks to your opposition? I did say that to him. I said it just that way. He didn't like the idea. He really didn't like the idea. No, I said it that way. You have to be a little bit lighthearted sometimes, but no, he doesn't want Tomahawk is a vicious weapon. It's a vicious, offensive, incredibly destructive weapon. Nobody wants Tomahawk shot at them.
Specifically ask you not to provide Tomahawks?
So, wouldn't anybody? I mean, it's been in the news. Who wouldn't do that? CNN. Who wouldn't do that? You know? Do you think he's going to say, "I'd love to have Tomahawk sent my way"? I don't think so. Maria, we have one of the great stars of television here, and she's an incredible person, and she's just an amazing woman she got it all right. She got the Russia hoax right. She got everything. Would you have a question?
Yes, Mr. President. I would ask you why this was so important to you. IVF, and why was autism so important to you? What are you trying to achieve?
Well, autism is like a whole different thing. When you look at it was 1 in 20,000. Now it's 1 in 12. If you look, Bobby, we have different numbers, but 1 in 12, 1 in 28, 1 in 32. There's a couple of different numbers out there, but it's 1 in a very, very different number than it used to be. It used to be 1 in 20,000. And that was not that long ago, 20 years ago or so. And now they had something for boys, for babies, baby boys. It's 1 in 12. I heard 1 in 10, Bobby. I heard another one, different lists. But when you think of that, it's not even sustainable, but there's something artificial. When that happens, that's not like a natural. And then you have certain groups of people that literally don't have autism, and they're not taking some of the things that we're taking. So we're working very hard. And on IVF, it's just that I have friends, including Katie, that called me and they told me the importance of it. I wasn't that familiar with it. Now I think I've sort of become the father ever since I heard. There was a bad decision in Alabama where a judge wanted all clinics to be immediately closed, right? And Katie called up and you said you were pretty strongly attacked by your friends that you didn't even know were involved with IVF, right?
You had people that had grandkids, people who'd gone through IVF themselves, telling their story and saying there are people that cope out there.
Tell what you did when you heard from your friends. You said this was not, they almost became violent, right?
Yeah, I told him, I said, Mr. President, we need you. We need your voice in this conversation. We need the directive. We need the strong support because there are millions of people out there, moms and dads, wanting to bring life into the world. And you had people, the chilling effect that occurred across Alabama, there were people that were in the middle of that process that had been praying to have a child, and that was halted. And so the reality of that was very stark in our state. And so I was able to tell the president some of the stories of people, friends and grandparents and relatives that told me what they had experienced and also, what they were fearful of in the future. And the president very quickly acted, spoke with a strong voice, and really led the way. Obviously, we saw Democrats continue to fearmonger for the remainder of the year, trying to use it as an election issue when actually IVF is legal and accessible in all 50 states. And President Trump very clearly said where he was on this. And he said, I'm going to make sure that this is more accessible and that it is more affordable for families coast to coast. That's exactly what he did. But it's that real life, there's real life stories, sir, that he responded to. And that's what people don't know about him. He cares. And when you tell him what American people are dealing with, he wants to do something about it. You have leaders and politicians that come before him that want to talk about things. President Trump wants to actually make things happen. It's exactly what he did here, and I'm so grateful, Mr. President.
Thank you, Katie, very much. Appreciate it. So,
and that was President Trump at the Oval Office holding a press event focused on lowering fertility drug costs and procedures such as IVF, calling it very pro-life, and taking reporter questions covering a range of topics, including the Ukraine war. And on that subject, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky just arrived in Washington hours after Trump held a call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Joining us now to discuss is Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb, geopolitical strategist and former Black Hawk helicopter pilot and battalion commander of the U.S. Army. Okay, Colonel, thank you very much for joining us today. So I want to start with President Trump's call with Russian President Putin earlier today. I don't know if you want to call this a renewed effort towards peace, but after the Alaska summit in August, things sort of cooled down a little bit. How are you reading the news now of their upcoming summit in Budapest?
Yeah, hey, thanks, Tom. I think a couple things. One of them is that this is a continuation. It's usually a process. It's rarely ever a one-shot wonder, I guess you could say, when it comes to trying to solve something this complicated. It's not surprising. We all wish something had happened a lot faster after the Alaska summit, but it clearly didn't. And Trump doesn't appear to want to be giving up on it either, so he's going to stay engaged, keep talking to both sides, and try to come to a solution in some way that will just simply at least come to a ceasefire, preferably end the war and lead towards some sort of lasting peace in a very difficult region of the world. And so that's a good thing. I'm not surprised by some of the challenges that we're still seeing with regards to the peace, but I also anticipated that there's a very good chance that Putin would want to keep going, a couple months ago, because as we get closer and closer to winter, that would be more of the target period of time when he'd be willing to potentially slow down or stop the conflict, just because of that sort of inherently happens in the winter anyways here.
Do you think the developments recently made in the Middle East have increased the likelihood of ending the Ukraine war?
Difficult to say. One would hope that the message that a deal can be reached in some form and at least come to a ceasefire, as it has so far in the Gaza Strip. That could be an example for Russia and Ukraine. The dynamics are so different, though, as far as the causes and how they're being waged, that it would be difficult to tie one to the other directly and say, yes, I believe this one will cause peace in the other one. I don't think so personally, but I would love for that to be true. I just think they're so different that they have to be handled in a completely different manner.
So, Colonel, I think one thing that is actually different from when the Alaska meeting happened was the talk of whether President Trump will send Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, right? So how does that fit into the picture here in terms of having an end to this war?
My hope with that is that it is purely a threat or a negotiating tactic and not a reality. That's not going to help bring this war to a conclusion if we send Tomahawks to Ukraine, which, by the way, would need U.S. assistance to use them in the first place. And then when you put yourself in the mind of Putin, he's going to look at this as, well, America is more than happy to keep this war going. They're going to provide weapons that reach deep into Moscow. And how would they look at this? There's no other way to argue it, but that we're willing to engage or let Ukraine use our weapons to reach deep into Russia, potentially even Moscow as well. So I understand the negotiating tactic and potential leverage, but I certainly hope we don't actually send these to them.
And as well, Colonel, President Trump was talking about trade between the U.S. and Russia when the Ukraine war is over. How much do you think that is an incentive to end the war?
It could be an incentive to end the war for Russia because their entire economy right now is based on energy supporting the military industrial complex of their own to keep the war going in an attempt to win the war. They don't have much else besides that. Now, they have a lot of it, and they certainly have upwards of what looks like $70 trillion in assets above and below the ground that they could leverage to keep their economy going, but it's just not very well diversified, and they need to have a place to send the energy to make that money in the first place. So now we're talking primarily Europe again, because that's where they send the bulk of it anyways. Trade with Russia in general after a conflict could happen, and it's not historically unprecedented for nations at war to, whether directly or indirectly, to engage in trade after the war comes to a ceasefire and hopefully an actual lasting peace treaty.
Okay, Colonel, would you be able to comment a bit more on the strength of this incentive? Because Russia has China and India as trading partners, right?
They do, and all of these trading partners are tenuous based on relationships. And so part of what we've been trying to do, at least what I hope we've been trying to do, is actually peel Russia away from China, because that is a dangerous relationship to Western nations specifically. If we can do that with the promise of trade in the future, I think that would be worth considering. And frankly, this is something that we're revisiting for a second time, because we initially considered doing this after the fall of the Soviet Union. The wall came down, and we were trying to tie Russia to Western Europe and NATO and the U.S. more specifically in order to draw them into the fold and help them create something that was better than what they had. To me, this is actually could be try number 2 to see if they're willing to do that, rather than align themselves with nations like China, even India, friendships with Iran, Syria, and elsewhere.
Okay, Colonel, we just have a bit of time left, and I also wanted your comments on the Middle East situation. And we did see a post from President Trump warning Hamas earlier about alleged killings taking place in Gaza. Trump, gave a stark warning that should killings continue, we will have to go in and kill them, he says. Do you think he's referring to the United States here? How are you looking at this?
Well, he followed that up by saying, not us. And that to me is very important, because when he says we are going to go in there, I'm always want to know who we means. And ultimately what I would envision, because I do believe that Hamas will not disarm, they will break this ceasefire, and they will continue what I call tribal violence now, because there's a power vacuum, and they're going to try to become what they were before at some scale. But if there is the necessity to go back into Gaza, Israel is staged best to do it, and it would look kind of like what it was before, where we supported them in some way, maybe with intelligence and defense from other nations. Israel knows the ground. They know both the geography and the people. they can handle it just fine on their own. With a little bit of support from us, it would get even better. I believe that's what that answer is. And then the question becomes, what does it look like after?
Right. Just one last question here. You know, now that the remaining living hostages are out, would you say perhaps it'd be fairly simple to take over Gaza by force if necessary, if Hamas does not stick to the remaining points of the deal?
I wouldn't call it simple by any means. It's urban warfare still was the hardest kind of conflict ever. That does make it easier in some regards because you're not having to worry about whether or not you're targeting something with a living Israeli hostage there. So targeting of some things becomes that does become a lot simpler, but the overall picture of the conflict remains extremely difficult. But the IDF is more than capable of doing this.
Okay, well, Colonel, really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
Coming up, the New York City mayoral debate is tonight. What New Yorkers are thinking about the candidates. Find out more after this quick break.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
For 65 years, Mathis Home has been helping you create the room of your dreams at great values. Come celebrate with anniversary savings store-wide. Check out their amazing selection of upholstered beds. Here's a hot buy. This modern queen bed is covered in a soft, luxurious fabric. It's available in 2 colors for just $5.99. There's over 100 bedrooms in stock, so you're sure to find the style just right for you with fast, free delivery. Come celebrate with 65th anniversary savings at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
This land, our America, built on hard work, determination, and grit. Sometimes the days run long, but hope, it never runs out, even when the food does, for America's veterans, working parents, even kids. Because in every corner of every town, even yours, millions of hardworking neighbors are facing a hunger crisis. Many for the very first time. In this land of plenty, affording food shouldn't require second jobs and third shifts or choosing between your groceries and bills. Today, you can help change that. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, less than 63 cents a day, to help every neighbor get the food they urgently need. Because taking care of each other is what makes America strong. We're Feeding America, not just a name, but an action, working with over 200 local food banks like the ones in your community, and demand is soaring.
You go to the grocery store, you spend $100, and $100 is a new $20 bill.
Even with 2 full-time jobs, it's hard to make ends meet.
These are tough times, but when we stand together, we become the very best of a strong America. Please call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month can feed a family today. And your first gift can double an impact. Plus, we'll send you this free canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you're delivering.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Because you're not just giving food, you're fueling resilience for people across the nation. You're feeding America. Call or go online today to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double an impact.
The New York City mayoral election is not far away. Democratic Socialist and frontrunner Zohran Mamdani, former Governor Andrew Cuomo, and Republican Curtis Sliwa will face off tonight in a televised debate. NTD's Shar Marshall speaks with some New Yorkers in Manhattan about what they think the city needs.
New York City mayor debate is tonight, so we came to Washington Square Park to ask the general public what they think needs to be done in New York City and what the mayor candidates should be debating about.
I'm very curious as to what is going to happen with the state of
MTA funding as it has to do with, especially, what was the thing where you have to pay to come down from Jersey? Everyone hated it. Yes, that was supposed to be for the MTA because they don't get enough funding from the state.
I talk to a lot of people about this stuff, and I feel like people, especially younger people, are really interested in Zoran's promises to make the city more affordable. I would like to see that fleshed out a little more. It seems like something that would be great, and then I hear on the other side people saying, well, it's not realistic, the things he wants to do, so I hope that gets discussed in more detail.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely help with like rent stabilization, because that's always like a big issue in the city, and then, better transportation, because like there's always construction and like delays with the trains and buses. So I think that would be really helpful. And I feel like that's what the mayors some of them are really like advocating for, which is huge. And like I've lived in the city for almost 10 years now, so it'd be great to see that.
I think that too many of the other mayors have, had their own interests in mind, and they're serving people we don't know about, and we don't really care about. These backdoor billionaire guys.
With only 3 weeks until the New York City, November 4th, mayoral election day, all three candidates are contending with each other in an October 16th Thursday night debate. Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa, independent candidate Andrew Cuomo, and Democratic nominee Zoran Mamdani. Is there a main topic that you'd like to see them debate tonight?
I think, like I mentioned, like rent stabilization, transportation, definitely making sure that like the crime's down, want to be able to live in the city and like not have to worry about things. So yeah, those are like the main ones.
I'd like to see them debate about how they're going to bring rent stabilization and rent control in, because the rent prices in New York City, if you look at the last 5 years, they've grown to an unreal amount. I mean, an unreal proportion. It doesn't even make sense.
I just want some substantial debate where I can see who's better, bruh.
The Justice Department is reportedly presenting evidence to a federal grand jury today in Maryland against former National Security Advisor John Bolton. The department is expected to ask a federal grand jury to indict Bolton over alleged unlawful handling of classified information. An investigation revealed that Bolton used a private AOL email to store and transmit classified notes during his 2018-2019 White House tenure in the first Trump administration in August 2025. The FBI conducted a search on Bolton's home and Washington office, where agents seized devices and documents marked secret or confidential, including materials on weapons of mass destruction. Prosecutors are expected to see Espionage Act violations. Bolton's attorney has denied wrongdoing. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma.
Big things are happening at Mathis Home. Come in now for 65th anniversary savings all over the store. Like this oversized sofa in an ultra soft fabric with thick premium gel cushions and 5 throw pillows. Anniversary priced at just $9.99. That's an incredible value. Just one of over 100 great sofas in stock and ready for you to enjoy tonight with fast and easy financing and free delivery. Don't miss out on 65th anniversary savings happening now at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
So at the age of 5, I was sexually molested. I had my first child at the age of 15 and became homeless at the age of 16. The scariest part about not having a place to live was having a child and not having a place to live, and not knowing where our meal was going to come from and where we're going to sleep. To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them. 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis.
It was pretty tough, but Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life. They gave me the love that I needed. They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
Your $19 monthly gift is urgently needed to reach other young people who are facing unimaginable situations. Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible. Thank you for caring.